Hi everyone, this is Alan McKay and welcome to episode 57. I'm talking with Darryl Johnson. Let's dive in.
Welcome to the Alan McKay Podcast. Alan is an Emmy Award-winning visual effects artist and mentor to many leading industry experts. Listen in as Alan talks with other industry leaders in film, video games, and visual effects about their experience, lessons, and methodology. Alan will teach you pivotal advice to fast-track your career, better your skills, and reach your ultimate dream job. Check out the latest episodes on alanmckay.com.
Okay, so welcome to a new episode. I'm really psyched about this. I did an episode literally New Year's Eve or that afternoon with Darryl Johnson, who previously has worked at a lot of car places like Pluto and places like that in Detroit. He's one of, as I keep calling it, the Michigan migration, like basically all these talented guys who are coming over from Michigan in flux at the moment. And so he's someone who went to Blur Studio and worked there for about a year and then went off to work for Blizzard after that, working on some really cool stuff. And it was just kind of fun. I kind of figure like Darryl's such a nice guy and also just a total nerd in a lot of ways in terms of being a big gamer and everything. And, you know, so there's a lot of stuff that we get into. I think it's just kind of really fun content to discuss and just also more about his whole career path as well. So it's definitely been a lot of fun. Now, I just finished the registration for the mentorship. So a couple hours ago, I officially closed the doors on the registration. And we're now officially, as of today, getting started. So it's been a lot of fun. It's been exhausting. I actually spent probably like 2 months working on the launch prior to things going live. It's a pretty daunting process, but just kind of getting everything ready and getting to now today, get to know everyone in there. It's been really, really fun. And obviously, like the past week, I put out a lot of videos, a lot of training. I actually ended up building a few live videos, like literally on like the last 2 days of the launch, building a lot of additional content, which was a lot of fun to do. And I haven't really done that specifically before. And, you know, just having to build a lot of content, like a lot of emails and everything else for it. Obviously, like the last 2 days of the launch, I'm always just sending out I sent out 3 reminders. So 1 on Saturday, 2 on Sunday, basically just saying like, you know, FYI, things are closing up in the next 24 hours just to warn people. And there's always one email I get, like one angry person who's always like, you're, sending me too much stuff. And it's kind of funny because like, especially being on the inside circle, like my VIP list, I spend pretty much the entire year building content and writing content specifically for that. So, I probably put out 30 or 40 hours of video over the span of the year that doesn't ever go public. It doesn't ever go on YouTube or Vimeo or anywhere where people can see it. It's specifically content I'm making for everyone in there, as well as like a lot of PDF files and emails and everything else that I'm giving away for free. But, obviously 1 week of the year, I'm doing the launch and I want to make sure that everyone who does want to join up doesn't miss out. And so I always find it funny when I get that one person who's like, what the hell? Getting all kind of like rowdy and abusive. Meanwhile, they've like happily been, collecting all the videos and everything else I've been sending the entire time. But the reason I do that too is because like clockwork, every Monday morning, and this is no exception, I've gotten 26 emails so far from people saying like, hey, I tried to sign up this morning and the registration's closed. I missed out. Can I still sign up? And unfortunately, the sign up end date was midnight this morning. So that means that everyone who missed out needs to wait until the next time, which is probably going to be the end of the year. So, it's unfortunate, and that's exactly why I have to send out those emails saying like, hey, this is your last chance. It's not a joke. It's going to close registration on this time. And if you miss out, you miss out. There's no exceptions. Otherwise, I'd have to make exceptions for everyone. And this time around, there are so many people who are like, hey, I missed out last year. Please, 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 can I get in before everyone else just to make sure I don't miss out this time around? So, whenever I send those final emails, that's literally the last chance. And then, if I don't do that, I'd probably get, more like 60 people saying like, hey, I want to get in the next day. So, that all being said, like I said, that 1 week of the year is basically my time when it's like, okay, I'm going to make sure everyone gets that chance, gets in, and then we get rolling. And now the registration's closed. I get to hopefully relax a little bit for a day or two and start ramping back up with that. So it's going to be really cool. We're actually going to start things off next week, doing some live intensives and getting to know everyone and talking about goals and everything, as well as putting out like a lot of video content. So I'm really excited about this. I'm really excited to get to know everyone in there. And I'm just kind of talking about this for a moment just because I guess for me, this has been a pretty big part of my life the last year and a half. And even just doing the launch the past month has been pretty exhausting, and kind of waiting till that midnight to close everything down last night and kind of get up this morning and then start firing out everyone's logins and everything else and get it all ready. It's it's just been full on, but finally I'm kind of happy. I'm really excited to kind of venture onto now working with everyone, so it's going to be really, really cool. So that's been the main big thing for me that I've been kind of working on up until now. And now it's 2016, I'm going to be doing a lot more. There were a few things that at the end of the year I wanted to do, and I just kind of felt like I had too much going on that I didn't want to be emailing, about like also doing the career intensive stuff, because I wanted to do that as well as an industry drinks night in December. But I felt like, just as I'm now doing the launch, if I'm also kind of sending out additional emails that one week, letting everyone know about webinars and everything else, it might be a little bit too much. But probably next episode, I'm going to announce the official date about signing up for the career intensive stuff. But for everyone who has already signed up for it, I'm going to send out an email soon, just kind of notifying you about when that's going to happen. But if this is something that you're interested in being a part of, you can just go to www.alanmckay.com/career2016, and that will give you a chance to sign up specifically for a career intensive that I want to do. There's a few I want to do publicly this year. I'm going to be doing a lot inside the mentorship very regularly, and it's more about accountability. I want to get to know a lot of people and talk about your goals, but also make you accountable for them. So that way we set actionable goals for the next time we do a career intensive. So that way the next time around we get together and I get to say, hey, your goal or the next thing that you're going to be doing was this, to get closer to that end of your goal or whatever it is. How's that all going? Have you been doing that? And I think having someone kind of kicking your butt a little bit can work out really well. And so that was one of the things I wanted to do end of the year, but like I said, I want to push it back a bit. So it's probably going to be the end of the month. I'm going to host something like that, or else the beginning of February. So there's already a few hundred people who've signed up, but I will officially be announcing it soon and following up on that. So if you want to be a part of that, just go to www.alanmckay.com/career2016, all as one word. And I'll leave a link in the show notes for that as well. And one thing I wanted to add in is that there's a piece later in the discussion with Darryl where I was talking about how you can essentially travel the world and essentially get paid, and all your expenses get paid for free. And in other words, you get to pretty much say, I want to go work in this city, or I want to go and do this. And I figured I might just elaborate on that, just because out of context, it probably could sound a little douchey to hear Alan be like, oh yeah, I get to go everywhere and I get to do all this stuff and I just, tell people to pay for it all. So I figured I'd elaborate, and also just for people who are like, whoa, like that sounds really cool. How the heck would I go about doing that? So I figured ahead of time, I will just kind of elaborate and say that one thing we discuss is how to create your own freedom in your job, where you could go and live in a different city or go and travel to a new country and not only get paid for it, but they pay for all the expenses. Now, this isn't some kind of way where you're essentially like scamming studios or doing anything sleazy. What I talk about, it's more about, being able to proactively choose what you want to do and then figure out the steps to make that happen. And usually the process for that is that your incentive is that you want to go to a new city, and you're specifically selecting that city or that job, that project, whatever it's going to be. Maybe it's you want to work on Godzilla 2 or 3 or whatever it might be. So that is your incentive. And the easiest way to make this happen is literally to find out what their incentive is to hire you. So if you want to go to New York or you want to go to London and you don't want to pay for the trip, that simply comes down to making it worth their while. Because it's not like you're being scammy or anything like that. It's literally you approach a studio and say, I want this, and let me make it worth your while by being able to provide these services, whatever that they comfortably are able to be proactive and, offer you a job in return for. Okay. So the secret to anything is really to find out what they want and be able to offer that to them, opposed to just selfishly going for what you want. So I figured I'd at least touch base on that, just because I was listening to this interview during the editing process of it. And I think out of context, it could very much sound like, oh man, like how braggy is that? So at the same time, if this is something that does interest a lot of people in terms of, figuring out like whatever goal or step you want and figuring out a way to make those happen, I can definitely elaborate on this and put together an episode, or at least part of an episode on this to, give a few examples of this, because I do this a lot. And like I said, it's more about me designing the lifestyle that I want and figuring out the logistics to make that happen. Okay, the same way that if you were to move into a place and the rent is too expensive, and you could either be like, okay, well, I guess I'm not going to get to move into that place because I can't afford it. Or you can be proactive and say, okay, well, if that's the case, then what if I register a business, in this location and I work within a designated area? I can write that off in tax. At the same time, I usually use Uber everywhere. So what if I rented out my parking spot because I live in a nice residential area, near the city or whatever? I know I can rent that out. In addition to that, what if I did these additional steps or whatever? And it's more a way to justify those steps and make that actually happen. Okay. So rather than not being able to afford an apartment, you're able to build the logistics around it to actually make it more feasible by introducing extra things that you could do to bring the price down or compensate in another way. And that is the exact same thing where if you wanted to work in another city, or you wanted to get flown somewhere, like I had a wedding in LA, and so I spoke to Ubisoft and I said, hey, how about I come over for a week and train up your senior staff? And the only condition is that I would like to be flown from Australia to LA and then Montreal, basically, on these dates. And again, nothing scammy about that. It's me being 100% transparent. It's like, hey, I've got a wedding to go to, so I need to be here on these dates. Is that something you can work into the flight plan? And as long as it's something that they want, because they're the ones who are going to organize it all. So if you give them what they want, then they're more than likely to give you what you wanted as well, since it's just like anything, it's an exchange of services. So anyway, I just thought I'd spend a couple of minutes and just kind of touch base on that. But at the same time, because it is something that maybe a lot of people don't realize is possible, is to say, okay, I haven't been back to Australia in a while. How about I organize like a flight over there by going and working for a month at a studio down there? You create that reality for yourself, and that's entirely up to you to go about doing that. But the real secret to it is basically just to figure out what someone else, the person who is essentially funding that trip or that thing that you want, or whatever the situation is, figure out what they need, like what's beneficial to them, so that way you're able to offer that to them, and in return they're able to offer what you want in return. So I just wanted to add that in addition, just as a bit of additional information. But like I said, if something like that is kind of interesting to you in terms of, I work really hard and I think I'm at a point where, I can go and seek the kind of work that I want or pick the jobs that I want, then you can start to kind of create that reality. And if there's something that does interest you, then I can definitely kind of add a lot more to that. And there's also a lot of people I know who are regularly doing that, flying their entire family around for jobs as part of their negotiations. It's not like just fly me. My entire family comes with me wherever I go. There's lots of different scenarios or permutations on those sorts of kind of like lifestyle design. All right, so I'm going to leave it there. Let's get into this interview. It's a bit of a long one. It's about 2 hours, but it's a fun one for sure, and hopefully you get a lot from it. And I've got some really cool episodes coming up after this. Definitely a lot more kind of chats with people. I want to do a few more of those, since December was definitely more the solo hour. I was putting out a lot of career-related content, so I want to do a few more now where it's more exploring a few different things. All right, so let's leave it there, and let's get into this. Right now you work at Blizzard in the cinematics department, is that right? Or am I way
cinematics.
Off? Yeah.
Doing lighting and compositing.
So you just recently, how long ago was it you moved over to Blizzard?
October of this year, so it's 2015 still.
So. Long, so 2 months.
Yeah, so yeah.
Because as we're recording this, it's New Year's Eve, so...
I know.
So what are you doing tonight? You're going to go to a movie and
I'm going to see a movie with my wife, or go to a party, or just cuddle up, relax. do the hubby thing.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. Actually, I will just say that I saw The Revenant, and it's fucking awesome. Like, I watched it on a screener, and I got into about 15 minutes of the movie, and I nearly stopped. And I'm like, I'm just going to go see it at the theater because like it's not doing it justice. So it is pretty brilliant. But yeah, I'm the one person who hasn't seen Star Wars yet. Like I was at breakfast this morning and there's this group of older people and they're all like, have you seen Star Wars yet, to each other? And I'm just like, man, I'm like the one person on the planet.
The Golden Girls have seen Star Wars. You haven't seen it yet.
Well, I was out with Delcio and Chad and a few other people last night because he just wrapped at ILM on Star Wars and he's just down for Christmas and everything. So we went out and got really, really drunk, or at least I got really drunk, I feels like. And that's why my place is smelling right now because I came home at 2 a.m. and I'm like, I'm gonna light up a cigar and like, you know, I bought myself for Christmas some like really nice rum, so I'm just like chilling with some rum, listen to some music, watch a bit of TV. I watched like interview with Sylvester Stallone and Robert Rodriguez, and and I fell asleep on the couch. And like this morning I wake up and this place is like stinking of cigars and everything. But we're out last night just kind of like catching up and doing all that jazz. But that was pretty cool. But I don't know. Tonight I think I'm not sure what I'm doing yet. I'm trying to decide that at the moment. But I've been running around like Nadell and Maggie. I just had brunch with them this morning and kind of ran home to do this. And I'm going to run out the door after that. So it's one of those days. But that's cool. Like, so it's been 2 months. Like, how do you feel after doing your initial stint there, you know?
It's different. I mean, I'm still pretty green to a lot of VFX, but I started out at Blur. Now I'm over at Blizzard. And the cool thing about Blizzard is they're using software I've never used before. So I've never used Maya. I've never used RenderMan. And I told them that, and they're like, "Oh, it's cool. Don't worry about it." I'm like, "All right." So I started working in it, and I'm comfortable now, and I'm doing a pretty good job. I think so. But,
well, it just so happens on the phone I've got your supervisor now.
Right, Darryl.
That's cool. And like, what were you expecting when you went there? Because like, Blizzard's kind of interesting because, you know, so many people work there, but at least for me, like you don't hear too much about the ongoing. I know a few of the supervisors there, but like I don't know too much about like, you know, a lot of the artists and like their impressions of the place. So
from what I wanted out of Blizzard was I wanted the fan base, I wanted the atmosphere. I'm a big gamer, I'm a big Blizzard fan. I've played all the Blizzard games, and when I got there, that's definitely what I got. I mean, from the artists to the supervisors. There's artists that have crazy side projects to supervisors that will ask me to stop after I'm done rendering that so we can play a game of Overwatch, so we can demolish surfacing department, which, by the way, they kicked our asses pretty bad.
That's cool, though. It's got that vibe. Like, actually, let's talk about it. Like, I think it'll be fun to talk about Blizzard for a bit, but like, were you required to have like a certain game score or whatever? Because you know what I'm talking about, right? Like, I had a meeting with Riot a year ago. They do League of Legends, and like, I just had like a chat because at the time I was thinking like maybe I should get a staff job and like do what everyone else does. And I thought about it for a bit. So like, I went in there and had this big chat. It wasn't about games. Like, they were doing, you know, the other stuff I'm sure you know about. And they, you know, basically they're like, Alan, like, if you decide to take the supervising position, then we need you to do one thing, and that's you're gonna have to get an account on League of Legends, and you're gonna have to get a certain score. And we're not kidding. Unfortunately, like, they're really, you know, stingent about this. So you know, at the time, like, Christina's like a big, like, she like played League of Legends, so I'm like, oh, I'll just get her to do it overnight, you know, just log in and play for me. But you know, is it like that there? Not necessarily the game scores, but like people there, like, you got to go into that environment and be a big gamer, and is encouraged, I guess, doing that.
A gamer, an enthusiast of their games. I mean, everybody that works there, they're into their games. I mean, if you're running a company and you're running your own IP, you want people that love what they're love what they're making, love what they're doing, and they want to put that, and it shows in the work. And I think that's the environment that I wanted to go into, and Blizzard definitely has that. You know, when I did my interview I would say was 30-70, and 70 me talking about video games and asking questions like, oh my god, so tell me the respawn timer of the Time Lost Dragon, because I've been there for like 6 weeks. I mean, that's good. Because it was funny, because at that part of the interview when they started asking me questions like, so do you have any questions for us? Well, actually, I do. You know, it's like I had a long list of just cheat sheets of just, okay, so in order to be an orc, you know, just tons of stuff. But I mean, it was fun because they were really responsive to that, and because of that, I mean, I feel like that's one of the reasons why they brought me on.
Mm-hmm.
So
that's cool. That's really cool. Yeah, like so. All in all, like, what are you typically doing? Like, you're doing more lighting or generalist stuff over there?
Right now, Blizzard has a lot of their own departments. I'm doing a lot of the lighting for environment characters. We're also doing the rendering, and we're doing a little bit of TD stuff. But they do have on-staff TDs there. So, and right now, of course, we are working on Overwatch. That is announced. I can't talk too much more about Overwatch, but Overwatch is fucking awesome.
Okay,
I love it.
That's cool. What is it? Is it a real-time strategy game as well, or?
It's a team-based first-person shooter, and I don't want to compare it to other games, but it's like other games that are out that aren't like other games that are out. That's weird. Okay, it's not like Call of Duty.
You're hurting my head.
I know. Yeah. It's not like Call of Duty. It's great because a lot of games out right now, it's just more solo, lone wolf, run and gun, do your thing, where this is more of a game where everybody is, cooperating, going towards an objective, and just making things happen. And there's not enough of that out there right now. And I feel like that's going to bring something new to the table.
I don't play many games. I was talking about this the other night with Chad's wife, of all people. Talk video games at dinner over a glass of wine. But early this year, like when I was working on Call of Duty, like Far Cry 4 came out, and I was playing that. And I'm like, this is cool. But then I just got the new Rainbow Six, and like, the thing is, I haven't played. I used to be good. Okay, like I used to be good online. And
I'm sitting next to a Doom machine in your apartment.
I know. Right?
I hope so.
That was a Christmas present last year. It's awesome. So yeah, the thing is, like, I haven't been online forever. And like, I went on Rainbow Six, and like, I played once, and I'm like, okay, I'm gonna have to like get better before I go on and embarrass myself anymore. So yeah, but like that, I noticed they do like you can do team match stuff, and like I missed that from. I can't believe I'm talking about Doom, games and actually Doom specifically, but that was actually in Doom. You could do co-op, and I missed that because Half-Life, there was like a hack you could kind of do it, but because it's technically under the hood, it's streaming maps the entire time. Right. So if you're doing co-op, technically you're on a whole different map while someone else is like 10 feet away from you. So it was a lot more difficult to do. But like that's what I missed about Doom. Like you could play single player like with two people and go around like shooting shit up, and it was fucking awesome. And I noticed now they're doing that with Rainbow Six, which is kind of cool. Like you can play single player with a bunch of people, run around, kill everyone, or whatever you want to do. So, but apparently Overwatch is nothing like that, huh?
No, I would say Overwatch stands on its own, okay. and I'm happy for that. Rainbow. You bring up Rainbow Six. Rainbow Six is awesome because I remember first Rainbow on Windows. Oh my god, it was so good and terrible at the same time because we didn't have the graphics back then. You got your friends online. You're securing the hostages, doing all the objectives. But when stuff like Rainbow Six Vegas came out, that was awesome. Like, you'd get your friends together, 6 of them would sit right in the casino. Who's watching the stairs? I got laser trip mines over there. Somebody's coming upstairs. Oh no, contact! And the next thing you know, everybody's down. Yep. So, and I mean, but that's fun. Like, now you play something like...
Jenkins.
And it gets heated too, man. But I mean, like, now you play Call of Duty. Like, before I came over here, I was playing Call of Duty by myself. Nobody's on the microphone. Nobody's talking. And by the end of the match, you hear some kid telling, "Oh, you're a cheater. My leg." It's like,
oh god,
what happened to video games, right? So.
Well, yeah, I don't know. I guess I'm shy. Like, I played twice. So the first time I played Rainbow Six, like multiplayer, there's someone jumped in and everyone's chatting. And they all knew each other, and I was like, I guess the one person who wasn't, one of their friends, and so they're all chatty. The second time around, no one's chatting, and like either way, I'm like, I don't want to talk. Like, I just came on to play a video game. I didn't know I was gonna have to like talk to people. I feel such like a noob right now. And the thing is, like, one person jumps in, and he's all psyched up. He's like, "What's up, everyone? Oh, we're ready to do this, yeah!" And then like a minute later, he's like, "All right then." It's like no one responded. It makes me think of the YouTube video after like I think 9/11, like. I don't know, someone on YouTube basically on the subway, like being like, "America," thinking everyone else would cheer after like they killed Bin Laden, which is fucking stupid. But
it's the slow clap dilemma.
Yeah.
Whoa! You'll know it when it's right.
Actually, I'll tell you a quick story. I was in a bar, Smuggler's Cove. It's like a nice rum bar in San Francisco, and I was out with all my friends, and there's this dude next to me, in another group, and he like stands up, and I stood up, and I was basically, sorry, I'm all over the place today. I stood up with my friends, and I'm like, "Aussie, Aussie, Aussie," like really loud to my friends, thinking that they're going to be like, oi, 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 because it's some dumb Aussie thing. When I said Aussie, 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 the entire bar stands up, was like, oi, oi, oi. And I was like, whoa, this is fucking cool. It's like 40 people or something in like the bottom level of the bar. And like everyone did it. And I was like, fuck, this is awesome. I didn't even know people would know that. Then this one dude with like his baseball cap near me stands up and he's like, USA, USA. And no one did shit.
That's what you're supposed to just tap him on the shoulder like, no, dude, it's not the right time.
He looked at me kind of like, fuck you. And so I just smiled and I'm like, Aussie, Aussie, Aussie. And the entire bar did it again. Oi, oi, oi. I think he left right after that. I was like so happy. I'm like, this is so cool. So yeah, you have those patriot moments of like loving your country, I guess.
Yeah, there you go.
Anyway, but that's cool. Like, I think that's one thing I think has changed a bit over time. Like, you know, most places you go to have always had this kind of like, we enjoy life and have fun kind of environment. And I think over time that a lot of places have kind of started not to do that because they're like, we need to make money. And, you know, that whole thing costs us money, basically having fun and freedom. So shut the fuck up and get to work. So, I mean, it's kind of great when you actually do go to places where it's like, no, we still have that environment, you know, and get to have fun and, you know, mess around because it's going to make you enjoy your job more and be more passionate about it. So it's great.
Yeah, no, it's a great place. I'm enjoying it. You know, to be honest with you, every place I've been so far, I've enjoyed it. So
when you went there, actually, just curious. I got another story, but have you heard any of the stories so far at Blizzard, like anything out of the norm about like crazy shit that's happened in the past, or like okay, at Activision there'd be death threats and people like one guy got into the office and he ran around saying I forget, like I've hacked the studio or something. I don't know. Like he's just running around until security came and took him away. But like a lot of big popular video games seem to attract a lot of people doing a lot of shit. So I mean, what are some of the crazy ones you've heard about that place?
I did recently inquire one of the employees. We were driving up to one of the buildings, and if you've ever been at Blizzard, there's tons of buildings. Mm-hmm. There's more than one building. So you've got the main campus that's gated off, and you have security, and then you got the other buildings. So we just drive up to our building, and one day I just asked, I said, is there a reason why we don't have security on our building?
Is there a reason why you have bulletproof glass? And,
right, right? Yeah. Like, it's so funny because I've driven up to the main gate, and they want you to flash your badge, and they want to make sure they see it. They're like, is that you? You work here, right? Mm-hmm. And, it's so like really like NSA. But as soon as they told me, they said, well, we do get security when we have like BlizzCon because some people come up here and they try looking through the windows, and I'm like, oh my god, that's a little creepy.
Well, that's happened actually at Activision where you got to close the blinds after 6 p.m. because technically with the sunlight out you can't see in, but around that time you can, and there have been people who've like put their fingers and face up against the glass like trying to see like, oh my god, it's a pixel, like this is so cool. I had dinner with I think there's two owners of Blizzard. There's two guys. I can't remember anymore, but like I had dinner with, I believe, the two owners. One's the CEO of Blizzard in Vancouver like 6 years ago or something, and they were telling me like back in the day stories like before they moved to the new office. Like they would get people who come with machine guns and hold the place up, like upgrade my score and like shit like that. So the reception desk was bulletproof glass, just because like that's what they had to deal with, and now. They were telling me they were really happy about like getting the new building because they had a security gate and everything. It's just like Pixar or anywhere else. Like ILM isn't very well protected, but I don't think people care as much about like ILM to Pixar.
And chill and laid back.
Well, it's just in terms of like one. All I mean by that is like one is a vendor, whereas the other one is Pixar, which is we made your childhood or whatever. And so it's how people are going to relate to it. But at the same time, like the shit in ILM is way cooler than Pixar. You got like fucking R2-D2, which is on your shirt right now, and everything else in there. They've actually got two paintings of Vigor from Ghostbusters. There's actually two in there.
Oh my gosh, really?
Yeah, because there's one in the main hallway, and it's right next to Slimer and everything, and they occasionally move around, but like that one was awesome. Then I was like walking around Carlos and Guiano one day, and like we're at the bottom level of building 1 in like a basement area, and like I'm like, fuck, there's another one here as well. So, but yeah, it's so cool. Like all the shit from your childhood is like just around, just hanging out. So it's fucking cool.
I remember right before I started at Blizzard, me and my wife decided to drive down to San Francisco, and Eric, who used to work at Blur, now he's over at ILM. He put us up for the night, then he gave us a tour. Yep. So it was unfortunate because they weren't doing tours that day because I guess they were doing some type of show.
They don't do it on weekends. I know that.
Yeah, so he took me on the outside campus, and we're going around, and you can see like a little walkway. Mm-hmm. And in the walkway, you can see silhouettes of statues.
Yeah, they got all these maquettes.
He's like, all these maquettes there. There's like, you see that one right there? That one's from Jurassic Park. I'm like, so what? It just brought me back, man, for a quick second. I'm like, this place is so cool. Like, you go to ILM, and you sit there, and you're right in front of Yoda, and you're like, oh, master.
Yeah, no, it's fucking awesome. They got the reception desk is like Han Solo. Yeah, the big metallic thing of it. It's fucking cool. It's just, for me, it's like the coolest place I've ever been into. Pixar is cool, but again, like, because they're doing so much like hush stuff, like, you're pretty much just gonna walk around and see a bunch of paintings and everything else, and I'm sure all the cool stuff you don't really get a chance to see. But like their office is great. They got swimming pool, basketball courts, like you name it. Whereas like if you read on Yelp, someone was telling me about this, like because there's a Starbucks next to ILM, and apparently that Starbucks, you can read about it, and people are like, it's occasionally fun to go and just have coffee there and listen to those nerds talk about like, their shots and your VFX and rigging and blah blah blah. And I don't know, like however it was worded though, I found it really offensive. I'm like, we're not like that. But it's pretty cool. That's great, man. And yeah, so just in general, like for you, what was the learning curve like needing to switch it up? Because I mean, originally they were all Max people, but they did, I think around 2009, 2010, they started to switch over to Maya, Houdini a little bit, RenderMan for all the rendering and everything. So what was it like for you to kind of have to switch it up?
The learning curve, it wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be. I've been fortunate enough to work in Max in a lot of the studios that I've been at. So I've never had to use Maya. So I was concerned about it, but as soon as I got in there, I mean, I learned the basics of Maya, learned how to navigate the tools, and I'm lighting. So I know how to light, I can composite, and we're using Nuke. And I'm like, okay, I can pick this up. And after about a week, I'm good, and I'm back in the flow of things.
That's cool. That's really cool. And I don't know, do you find it pretty fulfilling, like being in a place that I guess you probably could have related to a lot being younger, like, I was playing Warcraft 2 and the cinematics for this and that, and getting to kind of be in there now, like because I'm kind of curious, because there's only a few places you can really be where you're like, holy shit, I'm here, and I imagine, especially for you being like a big gamer, that would be a place that you could really relate to and be like, holy shit, motherfuckers, Warcraft, StarCraft. Yeah, I made it.
There's many times where I walk into somebody in a hallway and then we have a 20-minute discussion about something that have to do with World of Warcraft or Diablo. Yeah, I mean, it's great to be around so many people that care about that work and also play it. I mean, I walk by people's desk and I feel like half the time is split working and the other half is playing StarCraft, Diablo, WoW. I'm like, oh my gosh. I'm like, is that the director playing StarCraft right now? I'm like, okay. I'm like, no wonder we're not getting reviews. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
What was I going to say? Oh, actually, well, first of all, you got married this year, right?
Yep.
Oh, and just for a minute, because I think it's so cute and also so fucking nerdy, but like, how did you propose to her?
So, I proposed at Comic-Con. And it's funny because some people have seen the video and it's on my YouTube.
I was just about to say, is it still there?
I was planning the wedding before.
Put a link to it.
Yeah, oh gosh. We'll go ahead and put the link to it. It's fine. My wife loves to show it to people anyway. But it's funny, I've been planning it for like a year. Mm-hmm. Me and my wife are huge Doctor Who fans, and I'm going to say that she's the pure Doctor Who fan.
Original Doctor Who or the remake? I've never seen the remake.
She's the original. Like, lost episodes. She knows the backstory.
I used to watch it when it was black and white, like when I was like 7. Yeah.
Yeah, and she got me into Doctor Who, and I started to just love it. And I knew Doctor Who, Matt Smith, was going to be at Comic-Con. So for a year, I bought my ring, my buddy Anthony, and for a year, I was trying to contact Matt Smith. Somebody who knew Matt Smith, because I wanted to propose to her, with the help of Matt Smith, with the doctor.
I know Matt Smith. You should have spoken to me.
Damn it, man!
No, the Matt Smith I know is a director in Japan. But that's wrong. But I thought I just think it'd be funny. Like, here he is.
The thought counts, honey.
He's got a scarf. Like, come on. Go ahead.
But it was funny because for the entire year, I'm trying to get a hold of somebody. I can't get a hold of anybody. So I realized that it's just going to happen. It's going to have to happen there. And the story gets even crazier. And I don't know if we got enough time to talk about it. But so I game with a lot of friends, guild buddies from different games. And this was the first year that we ever went to Comic-Con. And it was the first year that 3 of us from different states were all getting together to go. So we all met up at my buddy's house in Anaheim, Indigo and my buddy Frost. And if you're a gamer, it's funny because you call them by their gamer tags. You never call them by their real names. I'm User because my gamer tag is User Pick.
I like that.
But everybody calls me User. He's Indigo. He's Frost. So we're all there. And the whole time we're there, we're calling each other by their names. His wife is like, who the hell is Frost? It's Tim. Tim, that guy right there.
Yeah.
But we're staying in his house. I'm so paranoid before I fly out to California because I bought the ring and I don't know how to get past TSA with this ring. So I'm reading about it online. I'm Googling it. I'm like, oh my God, I'm hearing horror stories about, TSA pulling it out and then, the wife finding out about it. So,
how come you can't just put it in your bag that you're taking through the scanner?
So that was what I was worried about. I was worried that you may unpack the bag. I'm just paranoid at this point. I'm getting married here. So it's funny. So at one point, I put it in a box. And I tape it up. The night before we leave, I put it in a box, tape it up. I take a note, tape it to the box, and then I say, please don't open this. Very important. I go to sleep. I wake up around 3 o'clock in the morning. I realize what I did. And I'm like, oh, shit. I can't do that. And I wake up 3 o'clock. She's like, what's wrong? I'm like, oh, no, I just want to make sure I got my socks. Make sure I got some
Don't
socks.
open, highly explosive.
So I take it out of the bag, and I have my camera with me. So I put it at the bottom of my camera bag. And we get to TSA, and I'm sweating bullets. I'm like, I don't know what to do. Get up there. I'm like, honey, you go first. She goes first. And I'm very sure I shocked and alerted everybody. I ran up to the TSA guy. I'm like, listen, I got a ring right here. It's in my pocket. See? Okay. Can I give it to you and then you hand it to me on the other side? So, made the quick switch. I gave it to him.
That's
I
awesome.
got the TSA and stuff. Did the body scan. And then he gave me the ring back. I'm like, okay, done. So, before we went to Comic-Con, we're in LA for 4 days. And we're staying in a hotel. I don't trust anybody with this ring.
Yep.
So I put it in my camera bag for 4 days, and I have it with me at all times. My wife was like, Darryl, do you want to take your camera? I'm like, yeah, I'm just gonna take it with me. So I've got it on my hip, attached, because I'm so scared that something bad's gonna happen. But anyway, let's get back to Anaheim. I'm at my buddy's house. I give it to my buddy.
Yeah, we're frosting.
Yeah, frosting Indigo. I'm like, here's the ring. Hold on to it, and just make sure we don't leave it.
Yeah.
All right. The worst possible thing happens. So we're getting ready to leave. I said, dude, here you go. The morning before we go, I'm like, here's the ring. I'm like, here's the ring and here's the box. Let me talk about the box. I bought a special handcrafted Doctor Who.
So it's handcrafted.
Yes, handcrafted off of Etsy Doctor Who engagement ring box. It opens up. It's in the shape of a TARDIS and everything. So I give them the ring box, which I got from the jewelry store, and the TARDIS box. And I said, bring both of these. All right, so I give them to him. He hops in the shower. We're on our way to Anaheim. We're good. For the first day, everything's fine. The second day, I'm like, I'm in the hotel room. Nobody's there. I'm like, let me just check the safe. I check the safe. I see the Doctor Who box. I'm like, did he put the ring inside the Doctor Who box? So I open up the Doctor Who box, and the ring's not in there. And I'm like, no. And Anaheim's, about a 3-hour drive from San Diego, especially with Comic-Con going on.
And I
call Indigo, and I'm like, dude, did you bring? He's like, I brought it. I'm like, what are you talking? I'm like, dude, call somebody. Oh, so he calls, dude. At this moment, I'm freaking out. And him and Frost, they make him an excuse. They say that, his wife has something to do and he has to go back home. So him and Frost drive at 1 o'clock in the morning, go back to Anaheim. They come back the next day and they bring the ring. And I'm like, oh my God. So got the ring. And the last day of Comic-Con is when Matt Smith was talking. It was on Sunday. So I go up to where the autographs are because Amy was doing a portfolio review. And I started asking people because I still can't get a hold of Matt Smith. And I tell them my story. I'm like, hey, I want him to help me propose. Everybody's running around. They're like, we want to make this happen. I'm like, oh my God, this is going to happen. And long story short, we found out that we could not get a hold of Matt Smith because he has separate security than the San Diego security. Yep. So unfortunately, we couldn't do it. So we go back halfway through the day. I bought all my toys because you can't go to Comic-Con without buying a shit ton of stuff.
I still gotta go to Comic-Con so I can understand.
You're going this year then. So I'm in the hotel room and it's just so total impromptu. Amy's a little irritated because we're tired of walking.
And you're acting weird, I'm sure.
I'm just acting weird and I'm sitting there and I'm setting up the camera. I'm like, I want to record this. She's like, what are you doing? I'm like, I want to do one final run through with my camera. Just want to make sure the focus is right.
Baby, we're gonna make a movie.
Right? So then I'm laying down. She's like, everything okay? I'm like, yeah, can you go grab some ice? But Darryl, you can get it. I'm like, yeah, but can you get it? So she's upset, and it's funny because if you see the video, when she walks in, you can tell she's got that anger on her face. And I set the camera up, and I get on my knee. The camera's all set up. I'm looking back, and that split second before she opens the door, my heart drops. I'm like, holy shit, I'm proposing to my wife, and I freak out. And then she walks through the door. I propose to her. I'm not gonna lie to you. I cry like a little baby. I couldn't even get the rest of the words out. I'm like, you married me.
That's great.
And and everything's old news. And now we're married. We're happy. We're gonna beat it. We're gonna do it forever and ever and ever. So
do what? Amy's awesome. Amy's awesome. Like, she's great. And I met you guys the first time in Detroit.
Yeah.
And like I got to meet her then too, which was really cool. We'll get into that. Like, that's so cool though. Like, so it's a shame that you couldn't get Matt Smith though. And like, I'm just kind of curious. Like, how did you try to reach out to him prior to Comic-Con?
So I found his agency. I tried to reach out to his agency, his producers. I tried to reach out to the shows that he was attached to.
So how do you reach out to the shows?
Emailing them. And I'll find out the email address. I did find a P.O. box for fans, and I'm like, I'll try it, but it's snail mail. We'll see what actually happens. Nothing, nothing
do not open
happens.
this. Very important. Yeah.
Yeah, I did that. It was like, please open this fast. This is important. Mass was like, yes, maybe not. But yeah, I mean, I tried so bad, and it was the craziest secret to keep too, man. To have a ring hidden in the house for over 6 months. Oh,
yeah.
Sure. Thought she was gonna find it every day. I came home from work every day, and I ran right to the spot. Okay, it's there.
Okay.
Put like a little hair, like an eyelash there, make sure the seal wasn't broken. Okay, good. She didn't see it.
That's great. And like, I love that you guys call each other usernames. I completely forgot about that. But like, when I was 14, I went to like a LAN party, like a big one with 300 people or more than that even. And like, you would have everyone like I had Machete, I think was my, like, what do you call it? Username, call sign, whatever. And the thing is that like, I wasn't used to that shit where people then call me Machete, and like, I would go and meet their wives, and we'd go out to dinner, and the wife would call me Alan, and he'd call me Machete, and I'm like, can you please stop calling me Machete? And like, I was teaching at university when I was like 18 or whatever, and I was teaching the first ever game development course in Australia. And so a lot of my students were all big gamers, obviously. And the thing is that like, they all had like these crazy names, and they'd all call each other that. And one of the guys, like, this big dude, he looked kind of scary, like, I don't know, like Igor kind of dude. And the thing is, his name was Slayer, and everyone called each other their names. And like, Slayer though, I had to talk to him, and he'd be like, can you call me Jonathan? Like, this dude's like scary as fuck, and he's just like, I really don't like how they call me Slayer. Like, can you just call me? It's like Dolph Lundgren in Rocky 4 or something. If he was just like a little kitty cat or something instead of,
My name's Tom.
But that's awesome, man. So then you guys got married earlier this year.
Yeah, we got married earlier this year. We had small wedding. We had a bunch of people over from Blur, some people that we knew here in LA, and my little sister flew in. So small wedding at the courthouse. It was great.
That's great.
And
it's really cool.
Kept it simple.
Cool. And like, before you went to Blizzard, you're at Blur Studio, and like, again, being a gamer, like Blur, usually you're gonna be doing a lot of game cinematics, and like, for you, was that like really fulfilling, getting to be like, holy shit, I'm like working on like my favorite fucking games and getting to do all this cool shit. And like, Blur has always been an iconic place, I think, especially for Max people, but just in general for like game cinematics back in the day. So I mean, for you, what was it like kind of going there and getting to work at a studio that gives you the keys to work on all the cool kind of shit that you probably love to death?
I didn't believe it for a long time. Even up until my last day, I still think they picked the wrong person. And I say that only because, I was a green artist. I was green. I was new to the industry, and they asked me to come out there. They asked me to come out to LA to work for their studio. And I'm like, oh my gosh, are you kidding me? Blur. I mean, I think the trailer that really, really resonated with me was Dark Souls 2. And it wasn't so much that it was an epic trailer, but there are things in there, like, as a artist, you see, like, in the Dark Souls 2 trailer, he has like this huge like chinchilla coat, and it's like just epic, and everything is just so photoreal, and you're just watching, you're like, oh dog, that is just amazing. Yeah, but do you see the dragon? Yeah, fuck that. Look at that. Look at that coat. Look at that. Is that for now? I mean, you get excited about like those small things, and you start overanalyzing it. So, I mean, as a gamer, I was totally stoked to work for Blur, and as an artist, I was stoked to work for Blur. And I mean, some of my dreams actually did come true over at Blur, and I say that because the game that really got me into wanting to work on games was Halo 2. And I was very, very fortunate enough to work on Halo 2.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if you were to talk about fate and just the chips falling in the right place, I mean, the stars must have aligned for me to work there, because when I started working on Halo 2, I lost my shit. Because I'm like, oh my God, are you kidding me? The game that got me into this, I'm working on it. I'm like, it's so great. And we worked on all the cinematics for it. So, I mean, it was awesome. I mean, my experience there has been nothing but pluses. So
That's cool. And like, what was, not just Blur, but everywhere, like, what was probably the most challenging, or like, what was the most challenging project, I guess, like to work on, in terms of where you're losing your shit for a whole other reason, you know what I mean? Like, your back's against the wall trying to sink or swim.
My most challenging project was the first prop that Blur gave me to work on. And it's so funny because
your hand shaking the whole time.
Beyond that. So, I mean, a little bit more about my background. I came from Detroit as an artist coming from Pluto and Team Detroit. I worked on a lot of car commercials, a lot of advertising. So getting into Blur, which is now just gritty, real, it's more photoreal, it's a little different. So my first project, I had to work on a Switchblade for Batman Arkham Knight. And my lead was Zach Cork, and he said, "Here, Darryl, here's Switchblade. I want you to model it, and then I want you to texture it." I'm like, "Okay, cool." So I model it, I texture it, and I show it to him. Super clean, it's pristine, it's brand new out of the pack, And he's like, "Darryl, we're gonna need it to be a little bit more dirty." I'm like, "Okay." So I tried to make it a little dirty. Still wasn't there. He says, "Darryl, we're gonna need it to be a little bit more dirty." I'm like, "Okay." So I'm freaking out a little bit. I'm like, "Okay," because I'm at Blur, and I'm like, this bar is so high. And I know that there's going to take time to get there, and I'm still getting there. And I'm sitting there, and I'm working on it, and then I'm afraid to show it to him. I'm looking at it, and I'm like, hey, Zach, how's this look? I send it to him over Jabber, which is their like messaging system. And I'm at my computer, and he walks up behind me. I didn't even know. He just taps me on the shoulder, and he's like, "Darryl." I'm like, "Yeah." He's like, "This isn't going to work." I'm like, "Oh shit." Dude, my heart dropped. I thought I was getting fired right there. I mean, me and my wife packed everything up. We moved out to LA with nothing, and I thought I was getting fired that day. And instead, he was like, "No, Darryl." He's like, "How about this? Listen, it's near the end of the day. Why don't you sit down with me tomorrow? We're going to spend a few hours. We're going to talk to you about the process that we do, over here at Blur." And he sat down with me, showed me their process and, a lot of their techniques. And I'm like, okay, this makes a lot of sense. And I was able to complete the prop after that. But I mean, I think that was the best experience that I've gotten out of Blur, was the fact that they were so willing to help me along to become a better artist, versus a lot of places that just, you better be good or you're gone, So, I mean, I was really fortunate. Yeah, they did invest in me, and I'm really fortunate for that.
What did you learn from Zach? Like, when he sat down with you and kind of...
learned how to make things dirty. A lot of edge texturing.
Dirty rays. It's like an ambient occlusion.
Yeah. A lot of texturing. I mean, that's the biggest thing. There's so much dirt, reflection, and it being metal. I feel like my hardest shader to work on has always been metal. Because it's always this, oh my God, it's supposed to be this reflective, not this glossy. And you're always getting notes like, it's too glossy, it's too shiny. At one point, I didn't know what the difference between glossy and shiny was. I was freaking out. I'm like, Chad, I don't know. What do you mean? It's glossy and shiny at the same time, and there's one value for it. I'm freaking out. But I mean, after a while, I started to understand, and I mean, the basics. I mean, I knew the basics, but they took it to a whole nother level over there at Blur. And after that, everything was good.
One thing I've kind of found, like, in those situations, like finding reference material and saying like, well, how about I go and find a picture of like what you want, rather than, because like 3D is such an expensive, slow process, and like be able to at least like find something. That's the same reason why like I've still got little napkin like or yellow stickets like these ones here, like of someone doing a stick figure, and then they have like an arrow or something, and it's like, okay, I want that, in Transformers, and it's like, okay, got it, and the thing is that like just that little communication of like the explosion needs to be this big or whatever it's going to be, it allows you to save like countless revisions and everything else just going to go into one extreme. But the same way that with me, actually a perfect example is like where I will do something where you do a version, they're like, no, make it more this. So then you're like, okay, time to go ridiculous. Like I worked on Priest back in the day, and I remember, there was an example where they wanted something more explosive, so I had made the ridiculously over-the-top explosion, because that way you've got, like, the subtle version you're doing, they're like, no, I want it over the top, so you do one that's way over the top, and that way they say that's ridiculous, and then you know that's too extreme. Because otherwise, what happens a lot of the time, they're like, make it more dirty, make it more dirty, make it more dirty.
Yeah.
Then the next day they come in, they're like, fresh eyes, they're like, whoa, this is too fucking dirty, dial it back. But if you set that extreme, then that's the cutoff. Suddenly you've got like a spectrum to work in.
You can bring it back anytime.
The only downside is that most of the time when you do that extreme silly version, it's like, here's your fucking stupid explosion, and you're like expecting them to be like, okay, dial it back. They're like, that's it. We want that in the movie.
You're like, oh god, no.
I'm like, no, this is meant to be like the stupid version, and now like that's going great, awesome, thank you. In fact, that's exactly what happened on Priest. They showed J-Bot, who was the VFX soup for the movie, this explosion, which I did it for myself, and I didn't show anyone because like I didn't think it was what anyone wanted. It was like this, the main character's bike, like full, like when he jumps on the train at the very end of the movie, the bike topples over and blows up or something, and I'd made this explosion, and I'm like, no, that's ridiculous. I'm going to go in this completely other direction. And the compositor found my thing, and he put it in the comp, and he showed our VFX soup, and he showed the main VFX soup, and he was telling him like, okay, like, obviously this one's like too extreme, but we're gonna we're gonna make like one that's like more toned down. But what do you think of this? And he's like, no, that's perfect, done, approved. And I'd come into work where I was like literally at the very beginning of the shot, still trying to figure things out, and I get told like your shot's been finaled. You just got to render it at 2K now, and I'm like, the fuck, like I didn't even give the compositor anything. Like, how's it final? And it's like, oh, we found an element of yours, and like, the director and the VFX soup loved it. It's like, okay, that's kind of scaring the shit out of me. Like, next time I'm gonna hide my renders, and have like this embarrassing piece of shit that someone's like, that's it,
with the Benny Hill music playing behind it.
That's it. Yeah. And that's really cool. And like, just in general, like, actually, here's a good question, just because we are at the end of the year. But like, what was the most valuable thing you've learned this year? It was a tricky question as well, I'm sure.
Most valuable. I know, it's like one of those interview questions. What would you change about yourself? Gosh, the most valuable, time management.
Mm-hmm. So you learned more about time management?
Yeah, I mean,
what do you learn?
Over the year, I mean, working at Blur, working at Blizzard, you see Blur pumps out a lot of projects a year, and we're working on multiple projects a year. So I have to work on, multiple shots all at one time, and I need to figure out a time to prioritize all these shots, whether it's from 10 shots all the way to 26 shots, and figure out how to get it done in 3, 4, or 5 weeks, or however long I have it. So learning more about myself, because I mean, when I first started, everybody always told me that speed will come. That's always the biggest thing everybody told. Chad has told me that speed will come. Get good at what you know, and speed will come. And it's slow, and it slowly started to happen, and I was slow, I was snail pace, and I started working at it. But as soon as I started to get into the rhythm, I started getting into my prioritization and getting all the files together. I mean, I was able to work at things with a faster pace. My pace picked up. And now, going into Blizzard, it's weird because I would say it's the first job that I feel 100% comfortable starting on day one.
Yep.
Versus, starting at Blur, where I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm freaking out. I'm like, can I do this? That's the biggest question. Can I do this? And I work in, I go into Blizzard. My biggest concern was, the software was Maya. And after Maya, I was over it. And I'm like, okay, let's do it. Next shot, let's do it. And it's fun, So time management has been a very big thing that I've learned this year.
Well, what did you learn about time management? Like, in what ways, like, could you apply it to your day-to-day?
My day-to-day?
Like, you got to have strategy. Like, we all have those that, like for me, even the simplest stuff that I used to do, and I don't do it as much now, but like, at the end of the day, I would actually put 15 minutes aside. It's like, let's say I was finishing at 6 o'clock. At 5:45, I would actually stop working, and I would focus the next 15 minutes into writing emails and preparing my next day. And that 15 minutes became invaluable because it meant that everything's wrapped at the end of the day. I'm not getting calls in the middle of the night because no one knows what shit is. I would, in some people's eyes, become annoying because I would email everyone on the team at the end of the night, a group email with everything I'd done for the day and where everything is, and like any single thing where you're like, I don't know where something is, like, there's the fucking email. So like, there's no excuse why something didn't get composited, or someone doesn't know where something is, so they waste a day, But like, having that there, it's kind of like, you can delete it, and if you don't want to read it, but if it's something that's valuable to you, like to the producers, great. And it also meant, like, on a side note, that if it was a situation where you need to cover your ass, like you've got like proof of every single day what you've accomplished, and that wasn't my reason for doing it, but I've heard so many other people kind of go through dilemmas where later people come to them like, we don't even know what the hell you do here kind of thing. And if you are doing that every day, then you could be like, motherfucker, look at like a whole log of what I've done in the last month, and but part of it was also just planning my day for the next day. If while I'm still in the trenches, trying to figure out like, knowing what's going on, what needs to get done. If I already plan out what needs to get done the next day and then I leave, it means that the next day I come in, I'm like, okay, I know what I need to do. There isn't any like warm up period of like, fuck, what was I doing? What was I working on yesterday? So, but that's all I mean by like, are there tidbits of strategy that you can measure with time management?
Note taking was very important, especially with my time management. Before I started that, I hated taking notes. People would tell me stuff, and I'm like, okay, I got it. And then, like,
make it dirty.
Just like Chad. Chad would look at me. He's like, "Are you sure you have?" I'm like, "Yeah, I got it. You don't want to write that down?
Are you sure you have?"
And then next day, he's like, "Did you? Oh man, I totally forgot about that." And it's always drilled into me. But I mean, note taking is really important, especially when it comes down to the amount of shots that you have. I need to categorize these notes, especially for the next day, because if I have a review in the morning and a review in the afternoon, I can do my review in the morning knowing that I prepared my work the night before. So taking the notes that I get from the morning, I write myself a list. If it's 3D, if it's comp work, or if it's, something that I can do, quick fix. And then I would break that down into how long this probably would take me. And I would start to categorize it, and I would plan my day out using, those notes. And I used old-fashioned Windows sticky notes. So I'd have like sticky notes all over my computer and stuff. And it's great because you come in, like you said, you come in the morning and you say, okay, what do I have to do? Because I was the guy. I was that guy that would come in and I'm like, oh God, what was I working on? What was the file?
Halo.
Oh. Exactly. So, I mean, yeah, that definitely helped out.
That's cool. And no, that's great. Like, those are the sorts of things that I find really invaluable. Like, do you ever like try and estimate how much time a task is going to take?
Yes, I do try to estimate that, especially, and I think that comes with experience too, especially with rendering, knowing that, okay, this geo is heavy, my past experience for this, and you start to prioritize that with, how long this is going to take. It's very important to do.
Did you find that you got more accurate the more you did it? Like, let's say, do you remember in the beginning when you were taking notes, like, oh, okay, this task, that's 5 minutes.
Yeah, especially in the middle of reviews, because, I mean, that's the thing. You're in the middle of a review, you have like a shotgun review, and it's like, okay, Darryl, so this right here, we need to change this. In my head, I can mentally tell him the second after that, yeah, that's a 5-minute fix in comp. And I can make a mental note or write that down, which I have been writing down, and, it makes it that much easier. Versus, I think... can I get back to you when I get back to my desk? And after a while, I've been able to gauge,
Yeah. Well, that's what I mean. Like, did you find, like, how accurate were you in the beginning with, like, your, how long you would assign to your time?
In the beginning, it was horrible.
Was it more smaller or bigger?
It was bigger. I was more clueless about how long it would take because there were a lot of components, especially when I started working at, like, Blur, that I was not aware of. And, after a while, after I became more aware of that, it got a lot easier. And comping, oh my gosh. Thank goodness for compositing and post-processing. Because I'm sitting there, I'm like, oh, I could probably fix that in comp. We could throw a roto on that shit.
Lens flare.
Right there. Lens flare. Yep. Yeah, it looks bad. Yeah, but we're going to throw a lens flare on it. It's fine.
Yep.
Add some camera shake. You're good.
I worked on this commercial for the first Scion commercial ever, and it was going to be premiering in front of the Matrix 2 when it came out. And originally I wasn't working on it. I just popped into Sydney to the studio. And I was just saying hi to everyone, and they were all talking about like, yeah, we got to make this car transform. This is before Transformers for like 10 years, and they're like, yeah, we got to make this like car transform into a robot, and like we don't know how to do it. We're trying to figure this out. And I jokingly, I'm like, just throw a lens flare on it, it'll be done. And everyone laughs, but a few people like they kind of stare off into space for a little bit. They're like, that's it.
I can see that.
And I'm like, no, like, I'm joking. And they ended up using lens flares for one of their transitions.
Exactly how it is.
But yeah, I was curious about that just because initially I found this with people I work with that I'd say like, how long is a task going to take? And they're like, oh, it's like 20 minutes. And especially 3D, like there's no such fucking thing as that. Like, I Blur actually on In the Rough, like back in 2004, we did that. And, it was the other way around where actually like we're getting assigned tasks of like 20 minutes, like Flappy, the director, he was, he wanted like water dripping down the main character Brog or down his face, and he's like, that's about 20 minutes, right, Alan? And I was like, this is before referencing and everything became popular. I'm like, it takes 20 minutes to open the fucking file, you know? So it's just, for me, it became a joke. Like, we're like, okay, now we're going to start bidding on like seconds, you know, of how much time. But like, you know, but that's the thing is like in the beginning, the more greener you are, the more you're like, I found that you kind of underestimate how much time it takes and you don't buffer.
Now I overbid.
Yeah.
I overbid my own time so that I can give myself those.
I think partially people do that because they also are afraid that like if they say it's going to take a day, people are going to freak out and be like, what the fuck? But most of the time, like a producer is going to be like, okay, like if you tell me what it is and it's going to take that long, then that's cool. But, you know, it's better than trying to people please everyone and saying, that's only like an hour, I can get that done. And then a day goes by and it's like, where is it? And suddenly you're fucking up because you're under the pressure now trying to get shit done. And it's more if you just give that buffer of like, okay, if it's going to take me half a day, I say a day. And that way, if I get it done in half a day, then everyone's more impressed. But if it takes a day, then no one's going to be looking at me like, what the hell? You know, so the more you do stuff, and that's why I think it's really good to estimate time, because the more you do that, the more you're going to get more closer and more accurate to like how long things are going to really take.
Yeah.
So that's cool. So were there any other key takeaways you got? Like any big aha moments, you know?
Gosh, aha moments.
Like you've gone to like 2 major studios, worked on some major projects. What have you learned? Like, I'm just curious, like, you know, if you were able to look back and be like, wow, like I never realized that getting to, you know, work on all the shit, that compositing is such a really valuable tool or whatever it's going to be. But I'm just kind of curious, like.
I would say I think one of the components, which doesn't really have to do with 3D, is keeping my cool and you know and being cool around people. One of the guys that I worked with over at Blur, you know, Eric Durante, he's over at ILM.
We were talking about him last night.
Yeah. I saw some pictures with you and Delcio and stuff. Yeah,
he's wearing his Half-Life shirt. His laundry day.
And the one thing he told me is, Darryl, if I can give you any advice, this is the advice. And if you're wondering, like, that's so, Eric's like, yeah, Eric's not. If any of you guys have never met Eric Durante, this guy has the most golden of locks out there. And I'm very sure there's some YouTube videos of him shaking it in very slow motion.
He's a nice guy.
But he's an awesome dude. Yeah. But he told me, he's like, Darryl, if I can give you any advice, don't panic. And if you do, don't let anybody see it. And I took that to heart because I realized while there's a lot of work there, I mean, a lot of people are playing off of other people. You know, the atmosphere is very important in the studio. So if you've got the supervisor freaking out, you know, your other artists are going to freak out. So it also goes the same way with, you know, as an artist, if you're freaking out, the supervisor is starting to lose trust in you. So, I mean, to feel confident in my work, and I didn't do a lot of freaking out over at Blur, just to let you know. But I kept that, you know, in the back of my head so that I knew that, okay, people are watching, because, I mean, they're watching, and I need to get this work done. So I'd get it done, and it, you know, it'd come out good, or it'd come out bad. You know, I'd get notes on it, and we'd address it, and just keep on moving. Because, I mean, there's more and more things going on. And after about a year, I wasn't as nervous as I first started, but I went back to Eric and I asked him, this was right before he left. I said, hey, dude, do you ever get scared or nervous when you're about to work on a new show? He says, yeah, dude, every project. He says, every project I'm scared shitless because I have no clue what's going on. And it's true, because all the shows at Blur are completely different. There's not one show that Blur works on that's like, okay, we're doing this. It's just like the last show.
Yeah.
Do it again.
Another black squid.
No, it's always something different. What are we doing this time? We're doing facial capture. Okay, never done it. Let's try it. You know, and it's always something different, which is cool, which is great.
Yeah.
But that one, it made me realize that, oh, they're mortal. They can bleed. The gods can bleed. You know, the Blurians and stuff. And I would think about that, and I'm like, okay, all right, so it's not just me. So now I'm comfortable, but at the same time, I'm cautious before I go into a project. Because as soon as I get a project, I take time to ingest it. You know, I'm glad that we have like the morning reviews to say, hey, this is what the project's about. That way I can ingest it, think about it, and start to time manage, you know, how I, you know, work on that project. And because of that, I've been a lot healthier, stress-wise. Because the first year of Blur, oh my gosh, I was scared. I thought I thought they made a mistake. I'm like, they really asked me to come over? For a dude from Detroit to come over to LA and work on some projects that they're working on? So,
sorry, a different Darryl. Like, we got lost
I know. I'm like, what the heck? So it's funny because, do you know who Chirac is?
Name came up last night, actually.
He works over at Encore now. But it's so funny because
I probably do know him then.
He was at our wedding. He was at our wedding barbecue, and if you don't know, I barbecue a lot. So the wedding.
I know you've invited me a few times. I think because I've never come, you've stopped the invitation.
But we had the wedding barbecue, and me and Chirac were talking. I'm like, yeah, man. He's like, Darryl, when were you hired? I'm like, I was hired November. What was it? I think it was like November 8th, 2013. And he thought about that date, and he says, huh. I'm like, what's wrong, Chirac? He's like, they were going to hire me and said they found somebody else.
You're that
guy. I'm like, oh, God, no. I felt horrible. Chirac was like, oh, no, Darryl, it's fine. Don't worry about it. And I was like, oh, my God, that feels so weird.
Yeah, I've had a few of those situations, not like necessarily that, but like, where it's like someone's referring to someone 10 years ago, and you're like, holy shit, that was you? And, it's just like, small world kind of thing.
Yeah, it is a small world, yeah.
And I think it's like actually really valuable advice, because like, I think everyone gets, especially if you freelance a lot, where you go to a new studio, no one knows you, you're always going to have that pressure on like your first free win, where until you get that win, you're going to feel like, you've got to prove yourself, or, you're worried about like what people are going to think of your work. And it's not until you get that, like, you're going to be okay speech that you feel all right about it. And like, I think that it is important for everyone to realize that it's perfectly healthy to go through that a bit, where you feel a little bit insecure when you're starting something, because you've got to get into that pace and make sure that, you're moving forward and, not freaking out and stopping. And I've actually had that where there was one movie, I was talking to the guy today actually, not about it, but like there was one movie I worked on, and I was souping a few people, and one of the guys, super talented guy, but like he kind of was having a meltdown because he didn't know how to do the shot. It was a tricky shot, but for me and the VFX soup was like pretty straightforward. And like that kind of thing though, like if you allow yourself to freak out, like he was just sitting there staring at the screen for like a good day because he didn't know what to do and he didn't know what to say.
Oh man.
And the thing is that it was just more about like getting him out of that mental state. Like he's perfectly capable of doing it. He can do it, but because he's allowing himself to freak out, it allowed that to take over, and he wasn't able to get anything done. So, it was more about just like, look, it's going to be real easy. You just got to do this and then this and then this, and then it'll be all right. And like finally, when he started to move forward and see the light at the end of the tunnel, then he got back on track and he was doing great. And like that's the thing though, is like if you can either let the fear overtake you and freeze you up, or you can, I guess, embrace it and be like, okay, look, freaking out a bit, don't know what to do, but that's not normal. Okay, I'm just going to let it happen, and then I'm going to get my shit together and get back on with this.
Yeah.
And that way you're not allowing it to happen.
I mean, a huge takeaway I would also say too would have to be anybody who's new starting up, ask questions. Mm-hmm. Don't be afraid to ask questions just because you're...
Unless you ask too many.
Yeah, okay, yeah. You ask too many, people start to get a little worried. But I mean, if it's an important question, mm-hmm. I mean, you're working on a project that's really big, it's okay to ask questions. Mm-hmm. And I feel like a lot of people don't ask questions. And then they get in that situation where they're panicking, and then they sit at their desk for 3 days and nothing comes out, mm-hmm. And then 3 days are up and they're like, hey, you got that TXA report for me? So, but ask questions. I mean, it's really important.
Mm-hmm. And that's the thing too. At times, like it is good to kind of get critique and feedback from people, because you might be stuck on something, but someone's just like, and they don't even need to be like better than you. They might be like a junior and you're a senior, but like they're like, oh, you ever thought about doing this? And it's like, fuck, that's brilliant. I never would have thought of that. So like that's where I think the more you're open and talk to people around you, the more you can bounce ideas back and forth. And there's been times where I've had like an animator give me an idea for how to solve a technical issue, that it doesn't matter who they are, everyone is going to be able to bring some, you're all there for a reason. Like you didn't go work at Blur or Blizzard or wherever the hell you were working at, just by pure luck because they got your name mixed up in the mail.
I'm pretty sure that happened.
So like everyone's there for a reason. They obviously know what they're doing. Like, embrace that rather than being like, I'm the only person capable of solving this thing, which is stupid. So that's cool. And it's like before you went there to, what was it like moving to LA? Like, I mean, that's got to be a pretty scary thing.
Culture shock, something totally different, man.
I guess it is. Like, I've only been to Detroit like that 1 week. And when Chad Longstreet and those guys wanted me to come over and do a meet and greet, and like, so I don't really get I don't really feel like I felt or got to know what Detroit's all about. But
we were going to that last night you were there. We were at Green Dot Stables, mm-hmm. and we're eating some sliders, and you're like, so you gotta I was about to do an Alan impression. I don't want to do an Alan impression because then people are gonna judge me. you know. But you're like, oh, you know, can somebody show me the real Detroit and stuff? And I thought about it. And Chad made a joke. He's like, oh, Darryl takes his strip club. I'm like, yeah, I can take the strip club. So I'm like, just make sure you know keep some money in your sock. You know,
I was just about to say the only strip club that they hold you up at gunpoint.
I know, I'm like, yeah, we can hit up 8 Mile. That's where all the strip clubs are.
I was just about to say, you know, 3 Mile. Yeah, because everyone keeps telling me it's like the more you know you go down there, the worse it gets.
It's funny because like you go down 8 Mile and you're like, oh, strip club. Ooh, McDonald's. You know,
I live in Santa Monica, but like around here, the way that like it doesn't matter, guy or girl, I would say, okay, so like you pass Fantasy Island and then Plan B, and then there's a Taco Bell, and then you turn left on the Centinela, and you're here. You know, it doesn't matter where you are. It seems like you can always use them as like navigation points, I guess.
Yeah. By the booby trap over in 8 Mile, you gotta make a left right there on Greenfield, and then you'll be there.
That was one thing that everyone kind of was really proud to say. It's like 8 Mile wasn't even shot at 8 Mile. Like that was shot to sea for like 14 miles.
That's the thing. Like it was so funny. Like that movie 8 Mile came out. I was like, oh, you live on 8 Mile. I'm like, listen, 8 Mile is just a really big road. Kind of like separates like Warren and Detroit, and you know. But it was never like the huge part of Detroit. I mean, Detroit's got a lot of things going for it. And me and Chad have gone back and forth many of times. Very friendly though. But about you know what Detroit has to offer. But Detroit, it's an interesting place because I grew up there my entire life. Inner city Detroit, right on Gratiot and Whittier, right in between 6 and 7 Mile. You know, anybody who's listening to this from Detroit, they're like, oh, I know where
represent.
Yeah, pretty much. It's funny because one day I was at work. Chad pointed it out to me. Either you know those buzz feeds. They're like, oh, most dangerous, you know, dangerous streets in the U.S.
Yes.
And it's so funny because he's like, oh, look, Detroit's on the map. And it's the street right on Whittier and Racine, right on Gratiot and Racine. And I'm like, oh my God. Chad's like, what? I'm like, that house, 2 houses from that's right. That's right. I grew up at. It was like this like 1 mile block radius of like this city. I'm like, oh God, I guess I'm number 2. It wasn't that bad when I was there. You know? But I mean, the difference between Detroit and LA, the roads are straight. The roads go north and south and east and west. And so do the freeways, which is great. But out here, the roads, they wind and turn. Yep. I'm like, did we just pass this? Yes, but we have to go this way and to reach our destination. The freeways go, you know, diagonally across all the streets, so there's no quick way. So anybody needs to go anywhere. They're on the 405. There's so many people. There's so much traffic. I'm not discouraging anybody. LA is great. LA is cool. It's not cold.
It's very different.
Yeah, I mean, it's New Year's Day right now, and what is it, like 50 degrees, 60 degrees?
It's about 40, I think. But still, like, it's nothing. Actually, speaking of which, to keep talking, I'm going to turn the AC up, because when we first got here, it was...
You hear that, Michigan? He's going to turn on the AC, because it's too warm in here.
Heater on, because I was talking to an Uber driver today, and she can see the pretty sunset splashing onto the Die Hard building over there. Actually, I've mentioned this before, but like I used to love my view because I'm like, oh, I got this like, you know, the Fox Tower over there, and I was doing a shoot the other day, and like I didn't realize like creative artist agencies over there, like CAA, you got Paramount or no Warner Brothers Studios over there, Fox Tower and everything. The thing is, like, if that Die Hard building wasn't there, I would have a clear view of the Hollywood sign, because I never noticed until I took a photo and I zoomed in one day and I could see like the D at the end, and I'm like, fuck, like it's completely covering up like an even more awesome view. But you're right, like, LA is it's a different beast altogether. You know, it's definitely really big, and like Australia right now, it's summer, everyone's going out partying, eating barbecue, surfing, and like here it's winter, but you know, it's like, oh, I better wear a hoodie tonight, because whereas like I was in Boston shooting Equalizer like 2 years ago, and it would take me like 2 hours of psyching myself up to go to Starbucks, because I'd be like, okay, I can do this. This is worth my latte, you know? So
No, we've been adapting. After 2 years, I can say it gets cold, and it sucks because every time I make mention to that to people back home, they think I'm being a dick about it. I'm like, oh my God, it's freezing. They're like, oh yeah, how cold is it over there? I'm like, oh man, it's like 56 degrees. And they're like, fuck off. And I'm like, it's cold. Listen, I've been in negative 30 with a negative like 35 wind chill in you know, Michigan, and those are tough winters. But after coming out here and staying out here for so long, cold is cold, you know, especially when you acclimate to the weather. So people need to understand that, and understand I'm not trying to be a dick. It's just cold.
So what they're really saying is, it's like, oh, you've gotten used to the good life, so now, like, you know, this is torture to you just because you've gotten so soft.
Quiet as it's kept, I'm not visiting home until spring.
Well, that's the thing. Like, I wanted to go East Coast for Christmas and everything, but like I'm not going to do the weather. I've watched too many TV shows where they're like the Christmas special, they're all snowed in an airport, and I'm like, I'm not going to be that person. So yeah, like screw that. I'm happy staying in sunny California. I was at the beach earlier. Like I was coming back to meet up with you, and I was looking. The beach was like 2 blocks away, and I'm like, it looks really good. Like I'm kind of tempted just to be like, we're doing it live. Let's go down here. But that's cool. And like actually, one thing about Detroit, which I think is hilarious. Like one of my friends is a comedian from Detroit, and we're working in Australia together. We're doing Daybreakers, and he's a comedian, so he was at nighttime going out and doing talks, and he'd always open his skit or whatever with like hey everyone, like my name's DJ, I'm from Detroit, you might know us from movies like 8 Mile and RoboCop. And everyone's like, yes, now I know what Detroit is.
Yes, Detroit, yeah.
But yeah,
I've actually had experiences. I went to Lens Crafters to get my glasses, and they were doing the exam. And in the middle of it, she's trying to talk to you while she's, blowing the puff of air in your eye. And she's like, oh, where are you from? I'm like, oh, Detroit. And the words that came out of her mouth, how she said, oh, man, is it getting better? So here's the thing. And for all you listeners, I'm a black guy. I almost blacked out for a second because I almost snapped on her first. I'm like, what do you mean? Is it getting better? It's good. I mean, I get that, that impression from a lot of people. Whenever you mention Detroit, it's always that, oh, you're from Detroit? How is it? Is it that bad? I'm like, you guys, it's really not that bad. Like, everybody talks about how bad Detroit is. It really isn't. I've been to worse parts in Chicago. I've been to bad parts here in LA that I'm like, Detroit might be a little bit better. But I mean, media plays it up. Detroit's not that bad of a place. It really isn't. It's beautiful. A lot of grass, which you guys don't have out here. I mean, there's a lot of concrete. I mean, I see people playing full games of soccer on concrete. Yeah. That's not safe.
I remember, like, I think it might have been just my roommate, but like when I first moved out here, I was walking on some grass, and my roommate told me, like, get the fuck off the grass. Like, what are you doing? Like, as if like, oh, I didn't realize that, like, from Australia, we have grass, and you walk on grass, you sit on grass, you go on picnics. Here, I didn't realize it's like this precious thing that
it's going extinct. Oh my God, little grass blade, are you okay?
So like moving out here, like what's the industry like over there? Because I mean, a couple of years back, it actually wasn't doing too bad. Like you had Method setting up there, you had Pixamondo setting up there, and why did that all kind of like disappear overnight?
The tax incentives. Yes.
Incentives.
They slowly started to go away. I mean, it was a big thing. Raleigh Studios made the huge green screen where they filmed Wizard of Oz. Did they film Alice? Oh, well, I know they had some post work at Alice with a twist that's out there. That's now a part of Pixamundo down in Baton Rouge. But
Brandon Bartlett and David. They're gonna kill me for forgetting the names, but yeah, those guys. Yeah,
I interviewed Brandon Bartlett. He never called me back.
I really like Brandon, and he'll probably hear this, but no, it's just funny because I guess there are some people who Brandon explains to me that I think he gets misread a lot. Like he's just because he's a pretty quiet guy, and like he's a pretty serious dude, but he's a lovely dude. But yeah, like there's been a few people like rub me the wrong way for whatever reason. I think it's just more miscommunication. But yeah. But
after the incentives went away, I mean a lot of the studios went away. Because we've got the automotive group there. Ford, they have Team Detroit. Chrysler, GM, all those places. They do a lot of car commercials in-house there. And there's
Motor City.
Yeah, it's Motor City. I mean, there's a lot of boutiques around the city to work on. But I mean, if you want to work on cars, the thing about working on cars, you're going to be doing a lot of the same thing. I mean, I'm not saying that it's not fulfilling work, but I'm not saying that it is fulfilling work. But you're just going to be doing a lot of the same thing. There's a lot of creative boutiques, especially with downtown Detroit. Yeah, Speed Shape. Pluto. Yeah, Pluto. A lot of those places are popping up, and they're becoming bigger and bigger, which is great. And those car companies have a lot of money, so they're always going to be making money. But as for entertainment as movie wise, there's a few game studios there. There's a lot of students that are trying to do startups. Indie games are huge right now.
Really,
and indie games, to be honest with you, I think is going to be the thing that revitalizes the gamer's heart, especially the older gamers, because we're starting to get so tired of all these games that come out that it's games like Shovel Knight and Enter the Gungeon, that's just bringing back that soul of a gamer. It's like, oh, that feels so good.
That's why I got my arcade right there.
Double
Dragon and
Double
Street
Dragon,
Smart and
The Simpsons. Do you remember that?
Yeah, I was talking to Delcio last night. I was because he messaged me even this morning, like, next time I see you, I'm playing the fucking arcade. Because, like, ever since I got it, everyone's been jealous. Like, I get pizzas delivered, and people are like, wait a minute, like, is that an arcade machine?
So, dude, you want, like, free breadsticks? Let me just play a game.
But, like, the reason I got it was because of all the nostalgic games, and I was saying, like, let's come over and play Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, like, 4-player, it'll be awesome. But, yeah, I mean, like, you go back to being a kid, you know, doing that stuff, like, getting you're putting a quarter in and getting to play Shinobi or, you know, whatever, Operation Wolf, 50 cal, you know, it's awesome. But I think mainly guys are going to get that one, right? But yeah, I go to Finland a lot, and over there they've got a massive indie game market. So I've been to a few conferences where they would get to present in front of like the CEO of Angry Birds and all the other big games, and yeah, they would basically, you know, present their ideas and try and pitch to get some capital. And yeah, I think it's definitely a booming market, you know, so that's cool. I ever tell you my old roommate was the one who started Fruit Ninja?
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
He's just rich now.
Yeah, well, it's funny because it basically all the guys who did it are my old students, and but my roommate was the one who started it. And as like, I'm sure I've mentioned this before, people are like, shut up, Alan, but but like as a parting gift, because when I moved out, I was moving to Sydney to go work in film, and I designed their logo for them, and that's how I was playing Fruit Ninja with my friend's daughter. She was like 2, I think, or 3, and she was kicking ass, like doing better than I was. And yeah, like I remember just seeing the logo, and I'm like, why does that look familiar? And I'm like, wait, I designed that fucking logo, and I'm like, Fruit Ninja, yeah. And like, so the CEO, he ended up kind of getting outed of his own company, which was kind of sad, but like he ended up becoming an exec producer for THQ, which was producing all of their games, Half-Brick. But Chenille and those dudes, like, yeah, I looked up his net worth at one point just out of curiosity, and I'm like, yeah, he's not going to be worrying about like paying the rent anytime soon. Yeah. So, but it's amazing. Like, you know, you find those hits like Angry Birds and Fruit Ninja, and like I would go to like arcades in Chinatown in New York, and they'd have like a Fruit Ninja machine, which I would never touch because I imagine the amount of people like wiping their fingers.
Oh my gosh, the fingers.
But yeah, like, you know, these sorts of games, like I've seen people like girls wearing Angry Birds underwear, and you know. Like,
well, I'm married, so I don't get to see too many girls with Angry Bird underwear on. But if you were to find these pictures online, send them my way.
And yeah, it's a huge phenomenon. Like that's the thing, is like you make one thing, and you could end up getting a TV show about Angry Birds or whatever the hell it is.
I mean, so, you know, and with the indie games, I mean, there's a lot of colleges in Michigan that are starting to finally realize the potential for this industry, especially video games. CCS, Lawrence Tech, some of those colleges. I think Michigan State. I know Ferris has been getting their college up and ready for game development, and there's a lot of students that want to do that. So there's a lot of students in Michigan that want to get into the game industry, not so much the film industry, because that's the biggest misconception. People feel like the only way to get in the game industry is to get into the game industry. And I remember going to one of my lectures when I was going to ITT, and there was a guy, Kevin Manning, which were, you know, really good, close personal friends. He said, you know, I wanted to get into game design. Before I got into games, I started working for Sony. I started working on movies. And then, you know, slowly you progress and you set yourself up in a position to where you can work in games, because, you know, your path or your objective isn't a straight line. And a lot of people think that it's a straight line and you need to go, you know, from A to B. But A to B may take you to A, point 1, point 2, point 3, and, you know, in 3 other directions before you get to where you need to go. And people need to realize that and understand that it's not just that easy, and it won't fall on your lap. You have to really like get up and just take it, you know, make it happen for yourself.
So when you first got in the industry, like, what was it like trying to get your foot in the door? Was it a huge struggle? It was
a struggle for me, especially because I didn't know anybody in the industry, and the internet was still a little new. So
what are we talking, like, you know, 1990?
No, it wasn't that bad. But I mean, there just wasn't a lot of people writing, you know, about it. So, you know, for me, when I went to school, I said, okay, I need to find out what I need to do. And while those teachers mean well, a lot of the teachers weren't in the industry. Yep. But don't get me wrong, there's a lot of teachers there that really helped me with my drive to get into the industry. And, you know, there's some people out there, and they know who they are, that helped me out and get me going. But getting my foot in the door was probably the hardest thing. I lucked up and I got on Spy Kids 4. And if you guys didn't know, Spy Kids 4 was made. It was made. I'm not proud of it, but it was made. I worked over at SpeedShape, and I was doing a lot of 3D conversion for it. So it was a lot of roto work and a lot of 3D modeling. And while we were there at Speed Shape, there was a lot of full-time artists that were working on like big-time car commercials. One of those artists being Chad Wanstreet, Jared Tripp, a bunch of other artists.
John Nelson?
Yeah, John Nelson was over there. Well, no, John Nelson wasn't there at the time. I met him a little bit later. But the thing was, there was 80 of us working at that studio with those full-timers, and I think there was maybe 4 or 5 of us that took it upon ourselves to say, hey, I'm going to get to know some of these full-time guys.
That's cool.
And we got to know them. Me and Chad became really good friends. I kept in contact with them periodically. And I say that, you guys, because you don't want to bug the guy that you're trying to, make a connection with, because it gets irritating after a while. So, I would connect with them, every 2 months, every 3 months. If I get a new project, hey, could you give me a little, criticism about this?
That's great.
And, one day, I contacted him, and he was just getting ready to start up a studio with Pluto, a 3D department. He says, hey, Darryl, you want to intern for this? I said, yeah. He says, it doesn't pay anything. I'm like, all right, yeah, that's fine. I still need the experience. So, I started over there. Next thing you know, he's connected me with a lot of other people. I met Nadell through there. I met you through Pluto. John Nelson, a lot of people. And the one thing I did start to realize is that it is a small industry, and it's such a small place that everybody knows everybody. I knew people out in LA that I've never met before I moved out to LA, which is the funny thing.
Well, I call it the Michigan migration because we had dinner the other night for Christmas, I think, and Heather came over, and like all these other people that like I haven't seen since Detroit, but like all of you fuckers are over here at this point. And like the people that I've even known here, who start hanging out with you guys, I'm like, fuck, you all know, I didn't know where you're from, but let me guess, you're from Michigan. Detroit. Yeah.
Michigan is now invaded LA.
Yeah. But it's amazing, like just seeing like all these talented people kind of coming over from like certain cities produce like a lot of talent. Like it's like Germany and France seem to have like really amazing animators and really amazing lighters. It's crazy, but that's cool. I mean, it's great. That's one thing I've also noticed about you guys is that you guys do band together and help each other out, look out for each other. So one person gets a job, they typically start bringing all their other people over because they know they're good. So it's like an untapped resource, So
I mean that kind of brings back to school.
Yep, that's exactly how it happens. One person gets a job and they're like, "Let me bring in all the cool best people from my class." And
the other big thing that I can say is, if you're in school right now and you're listening to this, those other students they may be your colleagues. You may work with them 10 years down the line or 2 years, from now. But make sure you're not burning bridges, because I mean, the guy next to you may be the guy that give you the leg up to help you out.
Yep.
I mean, when I was at Speed Shape, I met a few people, a few of them naming off the bat. Let's see, Joe Coleman. We got my man Mike Frank, and both of them, we kept in contact, and we always kept in contact. And after about a year over at Blur, they asked, well, hey, Darryl, do you know anybody who's in effects? And I said, yeah, I got a buddy who does a lot of filming. He does a lot of effects. And it's funny because, he knew about Alan McKay from all his tutorials and stuff, So when I told him, like, yeah, me and Alan McKay, we just, hanging out, having a beer and shit. And he's like, what? He was excited because it's, it's the big leagues, in a manner of speaking. But, I said, hey, my buddy Joe can do it. So they gave Joe a call.
Oh, Joe, it's funny. I was down at the beach the other day, and he came up to me with his friend.
Mike Frank. Those are the two guys.
Yeah. He's a nice dude.
Yeah, I mean, and he is a great dude. And the one thing that I tell a lot of my friends back in Michigan, if you want to come out here and you want to try it out, hit me up, because I have no problem saying, hey, crash on my couch for a week, 2 weeks, 3 months, because I wish I had that. And, I'm all about paying it forward and trying to help other people out, because there's things that I didn't have that, I wish I had, when I was growing up or when I was, trying to come up as an artist. And the big intimidating thing for LA, the move from Detroit to LA, is doing it. And, I was scared when I did it too. So to know that you have a lifeline out there to say, hey, Darryl, do you mind if I crash on your couch for a month? And Joe did. I think Joe crashed on my couch for 3 months. Did some freelance, did some more freelance, crashed on my couch for another 3 months, and then Blur decided to hire him full time. Now he's an artist over at Blur. It's same with my buddy Mike. He needed to play.
He's at Encore, right?
He's at Encore now and stuff. We were watching his dog for about 2 months, and it's friends really help this industry like band together, and that's why it is so small, because everybody, they're so tight and they're so collaborative. And they get together and they make things happen. Don't get me wrong. Your skill will definitely get you there.
Yep.
And it's a very big part. It is a very big part. But recommendation, getting jobs through recommendation is I would say a larger part of it too. So
I met a guy. He was a director from Hollywood back when I was a teenager, and we went to go see Unbreakable, and it was raining in Sydney, and I was on the bus with him. I'm like, do you have any advice for me? Like, if you give me one piece of advice, for working in LA and blah, blah, blah. And he said, it's all about who you know and who you blow. And, it's such a crass term, but like that's Hollywood, but like that is it. Like, knowing everyone and networking is a very key thing. It's not something you rely on solely, but the thing is that like the more you work in this industry, the more you're going to get to know everyone. And then like, the other night we were at Chad's place and like I knew everyone there. I couldn't really remember how I knew everyone, but you know everyone there. And just in general, like that's the kind of shit that happens. Like I went for my meeting with Volker Engel and those guys for Independence Day 2, and I'd sit in the room and like every single person sitting in that room with me were guys I've known for 10, 15 years. So it wasn't like nice to meet you. It's just like, all right, let's talk turkey, but that's just it. The more you work in this industry, the more you're going to get to know people, and you can start that before you even get in the industry. And that's how a lot of people get in. Like I've got friends up in San Fran who all came from Expression and Artist Institute, and the way they got in was that one guy got a job, came in, and then they're like, oh, I know someone who could do that. And then bit by bit, more people get pulled in. And now those guys are leads on like really big projects, some of them down here at DreamWorks, like, and it all came from, migrating with those friends to where
migrating, the Michigan migrating flock. We're all here.
That's right.
Winter's coming. Better go west to LA.
But, that's one thing I always look at the commonalities of like a lot of you guys, especially, and you get people who are architecture or cars. And like cars is a big industry, but it's also, both of those are really good proving grounds, I think, for other areas, even if you're not going to be a lighter or whatever else. But like just in terms of the process, the structure, understanding like a lot of generalist stuff. Like I was kind of shocked when I first moved to the States, and a lot of people weren't coming from being a generalist, and that really kind of bothered me a lot, because I think for everyone, like Australia, you never had the luxury of like, I'm going to be effects or I'm going to be this. It's like you start out in 3D, and then maybe if you're lucky, there's some things that you really excel at that you actually get to do day to day. But usually you got to know how to model. Like I was animating on Max Steel, the TV show, just compositing, like everything. And that, having all those skills, even if you don't use them day to day, it's going to make you a better artist. So I think coming from architecture or coming from cars, like if you can make a photoreal car, and I remember you sending me stuff before you went to Blur, like, hey, this is like the tests I'm doing to try and get a Blur. And like getting a look at that, and that's going to teach you so much that when you get somewhere, you'll have all this background knowledge that you can start to apply in completely different ways.
Now, I may have to cut you off there, because you would think that sometimes, but in this particular situation, my first project was Batman Arkham Knight. Mm-hmm. And the first thing that they did was give me all of the car shots of the Batmobile. So let me give you a background about car commercials. They're smooth, they're nice, you can get cool reflections out of them. So the Batmobile is a tank, and it's got so many different sides on it. You can't get nice, cool little lines out of it. That was probably the hardest thing I ever had to light, was the Batmobile.
Oh, really?
Like you couldn't just pop a light right there. You couldn't just pop a key light and like get a nice little hip reflection out of the Batmobile, because there's so many different sides from it, and none of them are straight.
What was the project like to work on? Because I know like Brandon Young, a lot of other guys were on it, and like, the stuff looks amazing, but I know that there are a lot of people who are just going through hell because it was a lot of work. Like the thing looks fucking unreal. It's great. It was
a lot of fun. I mean, I even did effects on it. Like, as a scene assembler over, at Blur, we do a lot. The only thing that we kind of don't do is, character modeling, animation, rigging, and layout. But everything else, if it's generalist and if effects isn't bitted out for it, I got asked to do the dew and droplets on the Batmobile. They're like, Darryl, we don't have the budget for it, but listen, if you got some extra time, can you R&D some water sim on the Batmobile? So I'm like, all right, let's do it. So, you really get to dabble in a lot of things out there. And with the Batmobile, with Batman, that was just a fun project all around. Because, you've got all these different characters. None of the characters are the same. You've got Batman, you've got Two-Face, you've got, Penguin, Harley Quinn. And it was so Blur. It was so dark, and it was so gritty, and it just felt awesome. And, and you can feel that in the studio when people are working on it. Every place that I've worked at, what really makes me stay are the people. And and because I say that, leaving Blur was that was probably the hardest thing to do was leaving all the people, and all the people there, are just so amazing. And when working on Batman Arkham Knight, you can feel that excitement in the air as a new shot would come out. Like, I remember Dan Woji, his shot was that iconic shot where Two-Face is shooting his 205, and the Batmobile goes right above him, right through a firing flame, and it's all in slow motion. Mm-hmm. And when that shot got rendered, everybody's like taking a pause, like, oh my God, that shit looks awesome. And, cool. And I mean, and it gets passed around, everybody makes their own little GIFs every now and then and stuff, puts their own soundtrack to some of the shots that we're working on. But I mean, that's all part of what Blur is and that studio is. I mean, it's family banding together and getting work done. So,
and shooting each other with Nerf guns.
Yeah. Oh no, we can't do that anymore.
I know. Like, who was it that got hit in the eye?
I'm not sure who did it, but it's so funny because the one thing that you joke about, you're like, oh, somebody's getting shot in the eye. Well, that happened. Like people were shooting Nerf darts. We would have Nerf wars every 5 minutes, and then somebody got shot in the eye during Halo, and it was funny because I believe it was the second time he got shot, and he wasn't even in the fight. He was just at his desk and he got shot in the eye. Civilian. And then an email came out and said, so you guys, we can't have any more Nerf fights. Oh man. Yep. And it was so messed up because some guys were modifying their guns with like these titanium space metal like pieces, like taking out the pieces, the springs and everything, so they'd shoot like 200 miles per hour and through flesh. And they're like, we can't use these anymore. And I'm like, oh my God, no, dude, I don't even want you to use that.
Guys, I brought in a real life grenade. It's going to be sweet.
Alvarez is the one who started it. Like, Alvarez started it, and then he got all the French guys involved in it. And next, everybody's modding their Nerf guns. I'm like, oh my God, this has got dangerous really fast.
Yeah, I was kind of happy. I don't care, but at the same time, like, I guess, for me, like, I'm not staying back late because I want to be there. It's like, you've got work to do, you got work to do. And so for me, it's kind of like, want to be head down and not really kind of jumping into like these battles where shit's like flying past your head and you're trying to figure out how to get your shit done. But at the same time, like, I think it was such an important factor in any studio environment, just having like those kind of distractions. Like on Priest, we had a post-mortem when we finished that movie, and I remember like we started doing Scotch nights every night. Like people would bring in fancy bottles of whiskey or Scotch or other things, and everyone would socialize. And I'm, again, not someone who drinks at my desk. I don't see the point in it. I love to drink and go and party, but I'd like to go out and do that. But in the post-mortem, there was one guy who complained about that. And he said, I want to say that I found it distracting because everyone's laughing and having a good time. And I, how do I say this? Like basically everyone kind of saw it as like a big conflict, like we were arguing. We weren't. It was just, for me, I was like, look, you got to be very clear about this, that like, if you say this, it's official, and it could very well be that there won't be that anymore. And for a project that was so stressful and so intense,
you need that.
Yeah, for me, like I wasn't participating in it, but I knew how important it was because like people these days still look back and mention that. Like, we've got a bottle of, actually at the very top of the shelf there. That bottle is a bottle of bourbon. It's like 18 years old, I think. Omar Garcia, who's one of the character TDs at DreamWorks, like he was a junior when we were there, and we were getting him to run out and buy booze for us. And and the thing is, it just became like this iconic thing. People will look back like, oh, we had so much fun. Like one of my friends, she works for NVIDIA. She still talks about, like, if you look, so I keep pointing at like my alcohol stash.
That is a lot of alcohol, by the way.
The cachaça on the middle shelf is the bamboo one. Delcio gave me that. The little tiny ones are from Alf Laval. He brought them from the Netherlands when he came over here came to LA for his movie recently. But like the two wooden bottles on the top there, they're Pirate Rum Cask 1623. They aged to 40 years using like the Solera aging process, so it blends in. Like it's just really oaky, really nice rum.
Oh my gosh! All your liquor has a story behind it.
Oh yeah, but so with that, one of the girls, she used to work for Pixar. Like she's insane. I want to get her on here because she studied at MIT. She's like worked at ILM everywhere. Like she worked on like Star Wars, like Attack of the Clones, everything else. Really amazing girl. And like I gave her one of the boxes like that it came in, like this really big, nice box, and like she still has that and like talks about it because of those nights that we would have of like drinking and hanging out. And it was just more about banding people together when you're in these high stress environments. And without those, it does become a job, and like it's a bit of a sleight of hand. But if you have those distractions, then you're actually more happy to be at work and look at it positively.
Because of that, I mean, I was able to stay at Blur and just relax and have a good time. I remember my desk mate was Brian Alvarez, and when we were working on Batman, I think we're both pushing ourselves, staying late, not because we had to, but it was more so just because he'd show me something sweet, I'd show him something sweet, and then we'd want to make something more sweet and just like keep working at it. I mean, I think that was my biggest thing when I started there. I just wanted to just make awesome things, and and I stayed late because I wanted to make awesome stuff. That's right. I stayed like half a mile away. Now I live like 50 miles away from Blizzard, and I'm like, I need to make sure this shit is right before the weekend because I am not coming back.
Yep. Actually, I'll just mention quickly, because I know Jolt Poxos will be really mad if I don't mention like all the bottles of tequila he's given me as well. So I don't know. You're right. I think every single bottle on there has a story. And then I have more bottles here. So I've got this is the 40-year-old rum, and you can smell it if you want. And I've got a Zacapa, Ron Zacapa Centenario XO 25 edition somewhere. I got some nice cigars, I think.
That's legit. I'm smelling some liquor right now.
Sorry, we're going off
that is nice.
topic. This is the boxes I was talking about. It's like this is the box that comes in. Really nice wooden. You can have this. This is my gift to you.
What? Wait, the rum too? Awesome. Just
hell no. I went through hell for that thing. So
it smells smooth.
Oh, it's so beautiful. I love this. It's my favorite bottle in the world. But yeah, like I think that's so powerful, so important, And yeah, just in general though, like going back to how you got started, like so you initially got in for Spy Kids 4. Yeah. So was Rodriguez directing that one as well?
Yes, he was, and he was doing he's very vocal. Him and the Weinsteins. The Weinsteins were as vocal as the director, and they'd have dailies every day with them. And it was cool because like they'd do dailies with Rodriguez, and he'd sit in his room with his kids, and like the kids would be like, "I don't like that. We're not putting that in. Take it out."
Well, that's great because that's your target audience. Like, that's who you're going for.
That's exactly it. So I mean, it was a lot of fun. Doing 3D conversion, that was interesting. There was a lot of 3D boobs that were unnecessarily drawn. A lot of dicks on the screen. Like you'd go into review and you'd see like a supervisor. They've got the 3D glasses on and they've got their pointer because you need like this point of conversion to see how far it's sticking out before it breaks. And like a roto artist would draw in like boobs randomly on the screen, and then the supervisor wouldn't notice it, but they're like, everything looks good, but something's wrong in this general area.
Okay, so I understand. So you're saying that like even though you don't visually see it, there's actually like the depth is...
The depth is still there,
yeah. Yeah, that's real mature.
So, that was the big thing. When they hired those 80 people for Spy Kids, I mean, I would say 80% of them were all students, and it was that's why I'm so surprised. Like out of 80 of those students, I feel like every one of them should be working somewhere else now because it was such a huge opportunity. It was that leg up. If everybody was waiting for a time to like get their foot in, that was their time. And there's so few that didn't take it.
I've had like pep talks with people who were like, let's say they came into Render Wrangle and like Omar, I mentioned, thanks for the bourbon. Omar, like he came in and he was a render wrangler, but he wanted to be a character TD and like he used that time and eventually started getting shots and, then started working on Priest with us. And the thing is, like, I've had other people who come in and they're like playing video games and dicking around. And like, I remember earlier on, I used to go up to those people and be like, look, if you want to get in this industry, if I were you, what I would be doing is like, you're hired basically to sit here and manage people's renders all night. And if something goes wrong, restart the job or whatever. Well, why don't you spend like the next few weeks working on some cool model or cool whatever, and you've got an audience here. You can go up to the head of 3D and be like, hey, while I was managing all my renders last night, this is what I made. And you have a chance to actually get through all the barriers of like HR and everyone else and get to speak to these people directly. And if they like your work, you could get, you could stick around rather than coming in, playing video games and then leaving. And like a render wrangling job is not a stepping stone, but it is a chance where you could make it into something rather than just being like really shitty paying job that you get to do nothing at. So why don't you actually use it as an opportunity rather than like let that go to waste? And like some people are like, yeah, whatever, shut up, I'm gonna go back to my games. And other people are like, whoa, that's really cool, I never thought of that. And they would go and make stuff, and then they'd get the attention, like whether it meant that they got a job or whether the head of 3D would start critiquing them and helping them and inadvertently become like a part-time mentor to them, which would later lead to work. So why not use those opportunities? Yeah. So you doing that is because you're a victim of your own success. You did something, you took initiative, and it led to something rather than the other people who came in hey, get to do some 3D boobs or whatever, and then wonder why they don't get to stick around afterwards. Like, take advantage of every opportunity you get.
I mean, but that also goes into making opportunities happen too. I mean, I've done the creeper stalker artist thing.
Okay.
Where I wanted a job. I remember there was talks. It was in the newspaper. Like when a new studio came into Michigan, I would say 5-6 years ago, it was news. And I remember reading in the paper, like, Pixo Entertainment moving to downtown Royal Oak. And I'm like, what?
You're there on the front doorstep, like flowers and
candy.
So,
you're telling the story, Alan. Just kidding. So me and my buddy John Hillis, we're sitting there, we're like, dude, I've got a plan. I'm like, you got your demo reel? I got my demo reel. All right, I got my resume. I'm like, yeah, I got my slacks. All right, let's do this. What time? It was like a Saturday. We were reading the papers, like the Metro Times. It was like Monday morning, dude, 10 o'clock. We're there. So we drive down to Royal Oak and stuff. We go to their doorstep. We got our paper. I got my slacks. I got my blazer on and stuff and all that. And I'm like, knock, knock, knock. Nobody's there. Somebody comes to open up the door. It's the secretary. She's like, oh, hi, can I help you? We just heard about your studio opening up. It's amazing. It's awesome. I'm like, kind of creepy. I'm a creeper. It sounds like I might be a creeper. And she's like, oh, we'll just take that from you. It was probably less than 2 minutes. And I felt so pumped. We're like, yeah, we did it. We nailed that, John. We're in there, man. We're in there. We came there. It's on a Monday. The paper came out on Friday. They're going to be like, oh my God, you got to show an initiative.
They haven't even assigned a CEO to the company yet. Like, we're going to get in on the bottom level.
Never got a phone call. Never got a phone call. It's cool, but the funny thing is, I know a lot of the people that work over at Pixo Entertainment now and stuff, and not Pixamundo, but Pixo Entertainment. It was a smaller startup. Their first project. They were going to be working in like some golf game for the Wii. I forgot what it was called. But
probably Wii Golf. I'm kidding.
Everybody loves Wii Golf, especially when they're drunk.
But that's good. Like that. Honestly, though, that is the kind of shit you got to do. You got to do it with class because, as you mentioned before, it's like sending emails all the time. Like I've actually mentioned this guy a few times now, but he always comes to mind right now. But like, there's this guy who emails me constantly, like, do you have any work for me? Because of that, it's gone to the point where I'm looking for people to hire other than him, just because it's just gotten to my nerves, and I know that it's like the sleeping dragon. If I hire him again for something, I'm going to get more and more messages, and it's just driving me nuts. But the thing is, if you classily email someone every 3 months or whatever, that's fine. That's staying in touch. You can show them like politely, like all the new work you've been doing. Great. Like that way you're staying in their mind. But you can overdo that, and it's just like, dude, fuck off.
Yep. If you get a date with Beyonce, don't freak out and don't creep her
3 days.
Out. Just be cool, be lax.
Call in 3 days.
Think Jay-Z, and you're good. Yeah.
WWJD. Like what would Jay-Z do?
What would Jay-Z do? You're like, you know what? I got 99 problems.
Yeah, man. Like that's great though. I mean, again, having that initiative and doing that, I think that's super cool. And yeah, like working on that project, something I was going to mention about that, but like, oh yeah. So speaking of boobs,
awesome. Let's do it. I'm ready for this.
Do you even know what I'm going to say?
No, but I'm cool. I'm down. Let's do it.
You were telling me like you got page 1 of Reddit.
Yeah.
Do you know what I'm talking about?
That was funny because I don't Reddit. I don't even know what Reddit is.
I don't know what Reddit is.
I'm afraid of Reddit. I feel like as much as I love technology and the internet, Reddit feels like that part of the internet I'm not sure I'm ready for.
That's one thing I've been told. It's kind of like I was listening to a podcast as a marketing one, and this guy was being interviewed, and he's actually a 3D guy, and he's like, yeah, like everywhere I've gone, everyone's been really nice and supportive, and it's only been on Reddit. Like whenever I post stuff, like people say like lots of not nice stuff, and I kind of feel like it's the place that people lurk, and it's like, trial by fire, yeah.
But it was funny because if any of you heard of Reddit Secret Santa. I've heard about it from my friends. I tried to do it last year, but I was late to do it. I didn't hit the deadline. So I tried it out this year. So the way Reddit Secret Santa is, you set it up and you get paired up with somebody in the US, or you can choose to be paired up with somebody in the world. And I got paired up with a guy in Germany. He wasn't my Secret Santa. I still haven't gotten my Reddit Secret Santa gift, but it should be on its way. I don't know the person or anything, but they tell you a little bit about the person, and I saw that he loved Blizzard and some of the Diablo stuff, and I'm like, cool. I'm like, wait, I've got this awesome opportunity, because I've always read these awesome Reddit stories about like Bill Gates and this guy, all their line of processors and new computers, or big companies do stuff like that, and I'm like, oh my god, dude, I've got a great chance to like really make somebody's day and all that. So when working over at Blizzard, they gave us the Ultimate Edition of StarCraft Legacy of the Void, which is like the big collector's a box. And they have a day where they have all the signings with all the game devs and artists. So this box is completely signed with every artist and every game dev. And I'm having a good year. I mean, a lot of things in the last 5 years, so many good things have happened to me that, I really just want to pass that along and just help out other people. But I was like, okay, I'm going to give this guy this Ultimate Edition. And on top of that, I'm going to go to the Blizzard Gear store, buy some Overwatch backpacks, some swag and all that. And I sent it over to him. Now, the funny thing is while this idea was awesome in my head, I'm like, this is great. I forgot that this guy lives in Germany and shipping is like $70. Mm-hmm. So my wife's like, no, Darryl, you should do it. I'm like, yeah, let's do it. Fuck it. Let's do it. So we do it. He gets it a week later and he's like, thanks, man. It's really awesome. And then I'm at work. I'm working. And then I get a message from my buddy Colin. He's like, Darryl, is this you? I'm like, what are you talking about? Sends me a link to Reddit. And apparently he posted it on Reddit, and it was the day Star Wars came out that Friday. It was like in the top 2 and 3 of Reddit for like 6-7 hours. And I'm like, oh my gosh. And everybody's freaking out. They're like, oh my God, this is awesome. This is awesome. But if you scroll down the little Imgur page, it's the picture of like the box, the game, all the swag. And then at the very bottom, there's a picture of these anime boob, like, mouse pad. So the funny thing about it is it's about 60-40, 60 being about, man, that mouse pad is so weird. So like Reddit, see that's where the part of Reddit where I'm like, I'm not quite ready for it. Yeah. Everybody was so responsive to like the gift, and then the other people were like, man, that gift was great until it got weird with that mouse pad.
Yeah, is that your mouse pad? You mailed that to him?
It was not my mouse pad. He just posted it in there, but I mean, it was cool because I'm reading through the comments, and it's like totally making me feel super warm inside. I'm happy about it. I mean, and it's almost the same feeling when working on a project, whether it's at Blur or Blizzard, and it gets loaded up on YouTube, and then you start reading all the comments about, oh, we love this, especially when somebody like makes a comment about your shot, and you're like, oh, that was fun. Yep. I mean, it's funny whenever somebody talks about a shot, you want to be like, oh yeah, I remember that shot, it was amazing. Instead, I'm the opposite. Like, Darryl, you did that shot? I'm like, yeah, it was 14 hours of hell. You just remember the roadblocks.
You're like, yeah, ZZ07. You remember the shot codes.
You're like, oh God, no. Yeah. No, scene 2, shot 26, no.
Yeah, version 56. God damn it.
I can mindfuck somebody right now, and nobody's going to get it. It's an inside joke. This is for Chad and everybody who worked at Pluto. Ford Fusion. Mindfuck. They're gone for like the next week. I know.
I'm meant to go to Chad's for dinner, I think, Sunday, so I'll bring that up.
Oh, he'll know.
Actually, you might dig this. They gave me, I've got a poster over there, I haven't framed it yet, but like they gave me a signed Call of Duty poster with all the development team signing.
Dude, that's cool.
Yeah. So I still got to sign it one day, but I got to frame it one day. But
the same thing actually happened to me with Halo. So I have 2 posters. I have the smaller poster, and I got everybody in the studio to sign. You remember that?
Got the helmet or something? Because someone got, I thought it was a helmet, or maybe it was a poster.
Well, no. I have a helmet on my desk. So when we were working on Halo, I had a helmet on my desk. But I had the poster signed.
That's right.
And then when I went to Comic-Con, I got this huge movie-sized poster. And I got 2 of them. And I sent it off to 343 Studios, sorry. And I got everybody at 343 Studios to sign it and send it back to me. So now I've got a poster signed, all from Halo and stuff. I gave one to Blur so they can put up, and then one for myself. And the same thing, I got to frame it. It's something that's just not on. I talk about time management, and I can't find time to frame my damn pictures.
I actually got someone from 343. She's going to be on, I think in 2 weeks. We're either going to do it this week or in 2 weeks' time. But yeah, so we're going to talk a bit about, I guess, Halo. I'm not sure, but yeah, that'll be fun too. I'm sure.
Yeah,
I'll get to see. Like, did you have to sign someone's poster? I'll check on you.
Yeah.
That's really cool. And so you basically you broke the internet without having to show your butt.
Yes, it was weird because it wasn't even so much that I found it. It was funny because people were coming to me, and I remember I played a poker game last week right before Christmas, and I mentioned it. And as soon as I started mentioning it, I guess so many people use Reddit. Apparently, it's a popular thing.
I've heard of it.
But as soon as I started mentioning it, they were like, "That was you?" I'm like, "Oh shit! So you've seen it?" He was like, yeah, I saw it. It was on the front page of Reddit. I'm like, holy shit, I didn't know it was that big.
Great. So beat Star Wars on Reddit.
Apparently, it was more popular than Star Wars and I can't think, Eli Roth or whatever his name is.
Oh, what was he posting?
Something about ask Eli Roth about anything.
Oh, really?
About the Hateful Eight or something like that. So
right. That's cool. That's really cool. And yeah, so you were saying like HR, like you went to them like instantly to make sure
well, that was the thing. So like, I'm feeling happy about it. It's cool. My wife's like, oh, it's so awesome. And then towards the end of the day, I realized to myself, I'm like, holy crap. I should probably send this to HR and make sure I don't get in trouble. Mm-hmm. Because like, it's all Blizzard stuff and it's posted all everywhere. And I don't want to like, I'm not representing Blizzard. And even here, I'm not representing Blizzard as like the studio. I'm just an artist working for Blizzard. They're just doing awesome shit. Mm-hmm. And it was the same thing for that. But, if you ever work for a big company like Blizzard, and I've heard things about like Pixar and Disney, like you start to read that contract. I had a lawyer look over my contract because I was so paranoid about like all of these like big rights business. And like, so whatever you think belongs to us. That's not what it says. But in so many words, you're like, okay. It wasn't going to change my decision, but I signed it anyway. But I'm like, oh my gosh, this is for real.
You can, like, if you need to, you can renegotiate certain things. Like, if you go work for any Lucasfilm division, they own your likeness. So technically, so it sounds like, oh, wait a minute, you mean that like they could make a 3D model of me and like make millions of
bought and sold me?
But it's just like, they're just covering their ass as if like they did like a behind the scenes video and you were in the background. That you're not going to be like, you didn't pay me for that, And so they actually acquire your likeness, so they could do whatever they wanted with it. If you became like a famous actor later, and someone at ILM actually did, the Japanese kid in Heroes, what does he say? I forget his thing, but like
I did it.
I thought it was like I did it, but
like, I did it! I don't want to say it. Oh, gosh.
But he was a 3D dude at ILM, and he would work part-time and go and pursue his acting career. So, it's pretty nuts. And but yeah, like technically they could be like, okay, great, well, we're going to make a spin-off show because we own his likeness. We'll use him in it. You could do whatever you wanted with it. But like, Pixar, everywhere, they're, it's a big business. It's like $1 billion business that, you
want to protect it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was going to say, I forget, but like, it's huge. Like when I was with Activision, when we had the merger with Blizzard, it was a $90 billion, it was the biggest game merger in history. Mm-hmm. And so suddenly, it went from being like, okay, well, we're video games, blah, 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 to being like, okay, well, now Blizzard owns this. And it became a bit more like a bit like a bank. And it wasn't Blizzard, it was more Activision higher up, just the way that they wanted to handle a lot of stuff from then on, because suddenly it's like there's no fucking around. Like this is like a big industry and it's a lot of money, and the way shit gets handled has got to be like at some level it's got to be taken that way. One of my friends, Keith Moore, he was the CEO of Activision, responsible for bringing it into like the 90s and making it what they were. Because like before they had all the Atari 2600 games and everything else, and they were, River Raid and all these other ones, and they were successful. But he was the one who brought Activision into, like, when it was on shaky legs, into being like this big monster game publisher. And and that's the thing. Like he's gone off and now he has like his own Monarch Industries, I think it is, really big industry, not to do with games, but like though we always think about like, it's so cool we get to make video games, but there's like this whole other side of things, which is like, I've been in meetings with execs at Activision where they're like, if you were to make us $50 million, we don't give a shit. Like you're either going to make us hundreds of millions of dollars or don't waste our time. And that is something you could be like, wow, what dicks, but that's how movie studios work. That's why they're doing reboots rather than making new content, because it's something where it's like a bank or anything else. They're not going to loan you the money for a house unless they check like, do you have a job and can you pay this back? Same way as like, we're only going to touch shit that's big. Like, it's a huge.
If that's the case, why is 21 Jump Street being remade over and over again? No, I'm just kidding.
Well, I only remember this because the Sony leak, but like, 21 Jump Street like was huge. It killed it in the box office. I only remember because Channing Tatum, he was famous for this one where he got the email saying like, we're number one and we made like all this money or whatever. And I think his response was, yeah, boy. That was his email, So
was that with 14 Wise and Boy? I wasn't sure.
I think it was like 21 actually.
Okay, it sounded like
so we'll wrap stuff up, but like with you and like your whole journey, I mean, like again, coming from working in Detroit, which, you know, I know for you is really important that like you've worked on a lot and like your career is just getting started in terms of like, you know, all the potential you have to do a lot of amazing shit. And, you know, already kind of coming from a place where, let's say you go and work on Spy Kids, 80 people, and there's a few people that really prevail, and it's the ones that take initiative. I mean, for you, like, how do you think a lot of other people can kind of succeed in their career when, you know, they feel like, well, there's all these other people in school right now, like, how am I going to, like, you know, get a job when I'm competing against them and everyone else in the world, you know?
Well, I mean, make a plan for yourself. I mean, the funny thing about this industry, I feel like if you don't become, I wouldn't say become successful, but if you can't get into the industry, a big part of it is you. You know, you've done something or you haven't done enough to put yourself in that position. And there's a lot of people in Michigan. I can understand it. You know, a lot of people are afraid to move out of their comfort zone, but that's one thing I think they have to break out of their comfort zone.
You mean move out of the comfort zone, like move out of the snow?
Move out of the
into
snow.
Into the warm weather in California beaches.
I do miss snow though, but I mean, that's the crazy thing. I mean, there's a lot of students, especially gamers. I love gamers, but gamers have this stereotype of being, you know, a guy living in the basement with his mom.
Yeah, and she does the laundry.
Not saying that that's true, but there's a lot of gamers that are to themselves.
I'm going to interrupt for 1 second and to say that one of my friends got a job at, not EA, at 2K Games. And I remember that one day he couldn't get in at work because his mom had done the laundry and his badge was in the laundry. And he will never live that down as long as he lives. I've met his future girlfriends and be like, remember that time? So yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean,
just validating what you just said.
I mean, the thing is that I don't want to say there's anything wrong with being to yourself, but I mean, this is the industry where everybody talks, everybody's interacting with each other. You know, a lot of people are people persons. I mean, come out of your shell, you know, talk to the people, network with people. If you have a chance to go to a gathering, whether it's a SIGGRAPH meeting or your local 3D team is meeting up, go to it, network with people. You never know who you're going to meet, you know, and you're going to make those connections, and those connections are going to help you in the future to help you get to where you need to, you know, go, or vice versa. You get somewhere and you can help those people get somewhere because, you know, you never know who is working next to you. And that's the other reason why I say don't burn bridges. The guy that you can't stand at school may be the guy who is supervisor at a studio and they say, hey, Tom, you know this guy? Yeah, he was a real dick.
Yep.
You know, I mean, but that's the thing, because that's the last thing they remember about you. You know, so remember, it's a small town. Everybody knows everybody, and word gets around. So be careful what you say also. Yeah.
A lot of gossiping going on in this industry.
Yeah, it is.
But no, it's really true. I mean, it's all about who you know, as Ken, that director, mentioned. Like, I think it's really important. And like, one of the big issues I have is that I see it all the time, that people go and they work on a big project. Let's say they do Halo, and at the very end, they finally get to like the last week, and it's like, what are you doing after this? And it's like, I haven't got anything lined up. So like, you know, I guess next week I'm going to start cutting my reel so I can start sending it out and getting work. Why the fuck are you going to wait till the very end to go do that? You should have done that weeks ago. And the people who are really successful, especially freelance, are the ones that are constantly networking and doing all this. And it might sound like, oh, that's a lot of work, but do you want to get the jobs that you want, or do you want to kind of like wait by the phone for the call that you might get your second job that year? And I always think that like every day at lunchtime, you could be having lunch with other people at other studios. You go to one of those meetups you mentioned, you get to meet everyone, and then you're like, hey, how about we do lunch next week? We can shoot the shit. Then, you know, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, 3 days a week, you're meeting other people at other studios. So you know all the projects coming up. You get to find out about them and talk about what you've been up to. You get to meet people there. Like, hey, I'll swing by the office and get a tour. Like, that's how I got that bottle of tequila. Was Jolt brought me over to Mind Over Eye, and I got like a tour of like their green screen studio and the car shooting stage, because they're another car place. And the thing is, like, you get to meet more people then. Like, you go around, shake hands. Later on, a project comes up. They know that you're being free in like a few weeks' time. So you should be able to have all your shit lined up, and hopefully even people fighting over you by the time your project ends. And that way it's like, well, what are you doing after this? Okay, I'm going to be doing this project next. Yep. And then as it gets to the end of that, next one.
Like, that was one thing. When you came to Michigan for that week, I really did admire that, because I remember you were sitting there working on the water effects of the tire spinning.
I came there basically. the only reason I came there was because the owner, he wanted to meet. So I went over there for a week just to kind of like hang out and get to know everyone, just because we might do business down the line. And
well, I was gonna say, while you were there, it was funny because I think you were only there for 5 days, but by the third day, I remember you were sitting there on your phone or you were on Skype, because I know Alan loves Skype.
I do.
And you were like, so I think I want to work on Star Trek. Who I know working on Star Trek? And then you started contacting people, and by the end of the day, you're like, oh, they're down there in Baton Rouge. You're like, I think I'm gonna go work with Pixelmondo.
Oh no, yeah.
And I was like, I'm like, that's cool. I'm like, that's cool to be in a place like that, to be able to, you know, one, have a reputation, you know, especially around town, to say, you know, okay, Alan's a guy that I can rely on to, you know, get work done. And just observing small stuff like that, I'm like, okay, well, what do I need to do to kind of start to get that? And I don't think I'm there yet, but I mean, I feel like I can get there, you know. So and it's setting up those steps and the plans for me to do that. I need to be proactive. I need to put myself out there. Yep. I need to make sure people know who Darryl Johnson is from Detroit, Michigan.
No, that's important. Well, no, it's important.
Shameless plug.
You need to. I think it's so important to like work on your brand and like get people to know you. Like, well, I'll segue for a second. Just quickly say like, yeah, what that was actually I was single, and there was someone that I wanted to go visit, and I didn't want to pay for my own flight, so I basically, you know, looked up a studio down there. I think I'd already done Star Trek, but like I basically just like looked up a studio down there. I was just like, hey, how about I come by for a few days and meet everyone, and you guys cover the flight? And yeah, so it was just. But you're right, like you can create your own opportunities, and I've done that for years. Like my old Facebook used to say homeless with dollars and a passport, because that's what I did. Like I didn't have a home for 3 years. I just bounced from studio to studio, made them all pay for everything. And I'd be like, oh, I've never been to New York, I'll go to New York. Never been to Germany, I'll go to Germany. I'm going to go to LA, but I don't want to pay for my flight. I just want to see my friends. In fact, Tim Miller, I emailed him one day and I said to him, Tim, like I haven't been to LA in like a year, and I really miss my friends, and I want to go over there and party. And I swear, this is actually what I said. I looked at it all, and the whole trip's going to cost me about $10,000. I don't want to spend money like that. So how about you guys fly me over there and I'll do some work? And Tim emailed me back, and he's like, I appreciate your honesty. Like, what dates were you thinking? And I came over and ended up working on. Originally, it was going to be Gentleman's Duel, and then they had a meeting like, why the fuck would we be flying Alan over here to do like Dust and stuff? So they ended up putting me on BioShock and Halo Wars, you know. But that was it. Like, I don't recommend doing that, but if you build up those relationships later on, you can be like that. But like, you can have those opportunities. Anyone can travel the world for free and get paid lots of money and work on cool fucking projects to do it. So, you know, it's all possible. But it also comes back to your brand and everything else. Like, you're right. I think it's so important. Like, do you want to be the person that you've got to constantly kind of reintroduce yourself? Like, I was talking with a good friend of mine, coincidentally, in New Orleans. He's one of the VFX supervisors on NCIS down there. And we're talking about this morning about show reels, because he's like, yeah, I want to cut a new reel next year. And both of us were like, why do we need to do that though? Like, I haven't used a reel since 2003, you know, and so like I cut one a while back just for fun. But you know, if you get to a point where you know enough people, you work with the same people over and over. Like Star Trek, the way that came up was that actually it was afterwards, because yeah, basically they called me up because I'd done Transformers and everything else with them, and they're like, hey, we've got this super cool project we'd love you to work on. We can't say what it is. And I'm like, is it Star Trek? They're like, oh yeah. So anyway, like, you know, we'd love you to work on it. Would you be interested in doing it? And I wasn't interested in it, but I knew someone else who was, and I thought it'd be fun. I knew it would make their dream come true, getting to work on that. So I ended up taking the work on, hiring that person just so that way they had the opportunity to work on Star Trek. But those are sorts of things that you can do, whereas, you know, by having created those opportunities for yourself, yeah. It's not something that happens overnight. You got to work at that.
No, completely agree. Yeah.
But I do think that everyone should be thinking about that. Like, I did an episode, I think I put it out, but basically about like stuff like that. It was about visas. But one thing that like a friend of mine does is he puts up all his press stuff and like everything on his website, and he collects that over time. But it's because that way he's got all that material around. But you should be thinking ahead like that, whether it is for visas or for getting jobs, like everything else. You are a company, you're a business, and you should be treating it like that. You need to go and put your flyer or billboard out on the street saying like, come by and let's do business. Otherwise, no one's going to know who you are. And like that's what you want, is you want to go somewhere. And like I'd have lunch with a guy and he'd be talking about working on Shrek. And I'm like, oh, you know what my favorite thing in the whole thing was like the dragon fire. And he'd be like, shut up, you're just saying that because I worked on it. I'm like, you worked on it? But that's the thing, is you get to, you go out there and you market yourself. You push your name. It doesn't mean you need to be a sellout. It just means that if you work on something, like why not take 5 minutes and put together a video showing off what you did, and and showcase that so people can see what they did, and also say like who did that. Like that person's work is cool.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I think it's so valuable to actually give a shit about your career, opposed to thinking, well, I'll just be humble and go do the work and I'll be quiet and hopefully they'll call me back. And instead of going out, as you said, and getting to know everyone, like if you make that a goal, like the next place you go, you're going to go up and introduce yourself to everyone whenever you have a chance to meet them. Like I was talking last night with a bunch of the guys, and we came to the conclusion that VFX supervisors at ILM must really kind of shudder when they walk into an elevator and there's only one other person in there, because all of us have a story about like chatting to Dennis Muren or chatting to John Knoll or chatting to Ben Snow about, I was in an elevator with him and I struck up a conversation and it was very one-sided, but he was very polite, but that's just it. Like, why not have that opportunity? Because then later on they might recognize you. Like the last thing I'll say is that I've worked at studios later on where the director walks through the room and sees me and is like, holy shit, Alan, like, you're over here. And then later on, suddenly I'm being called into all the meetings and having creative say over a lot of like stuff that we're doing, because I met him years ago, he or she, on, different projects, and like got in, instead of just being quiet and whatever, I'd actually get to know that person and show them my work. And there'll be a chance where suddenly they know who you are. And later because when they go and direct something, they're kind of also the odd one out. They're the one who's like, I don't know anyone in this room. So like, even if you're not in a position to be having creative say, they might want to pull you in there because you're the only person that is familiar to them. So, all that shit's really valuable. You should be owning it in every single way you can. Be like, fuck yeah.
It's your career. I mean, it's your future. It's the most important thing. So why not take advantage of it, So.
That's good, man. And that's cool. I mean, for you now, like, what are your big goals for next year? I'm asking that because it's going to be in a couple hours.
In a couple hours, and I don't know.
6 hours from now, it's going to be 2016.
6 hours, and let's set the mood. We've got a bottle of. I feel like I feel like the ladies' man.
I know. I was going to mention that. I lit like this romantic candle that we got like sitting in front of us.
Nice French vanilla with some nice. He's going to liquor me up, you guys, and have his way with me.
Amy, I'm sorry. Yeah.
But I mean, it's the next year. Gosh. I don't know, because I don't want to jinx it. I mean, again, like even now I'm preparing because, I'm on a contract, but I mean, at the same time, there's so many things I want to do. I want to travel. I would love to go to a different country. I would
Where
love
do you want to go? New Zealand, Australia?
I would love to go to New Zealand. I would love to go to the UK. The UK is something that me and Amy really want to do.
Great.
So, I mean, that's something that we look forward to trying to accomplish. So, I mean, it's funny, like everybody's like, well, what's the plans for next year? I mean, my plans go beyond that. My plans are like, what am I going to do from here on out?
Well, it's
like,
good.
That's what I want to do.
You have like that bigger goal, though.
Yeah.
You can break it down and say, okay, well, next year for me to do that, maybe I need to go like 5 different places. So I've got the 5 blizzards on the resume. So when someone sees it, it's like, holy crap, So for you, it might be like targeting those specific places as well as working on your visa stuff, because if I'm going to go to the UK, I probably need to have credentials. So maybe do more media or whatever you can do to kind of help build that portfolio. And on top of that, maybe it's like my goal is to go at one conference in the UK next year or wherever I get to meet people over there so I can schmooze, whatever the fuck. But that's good. It's good if you have those bigger goals. You can say, okay, well, next year it's these things because it's going to get me closer to my big goal. That's great. Yeah.
I'm looking forward to it. You got any good plans? Anything looking forward to?
Oh, God. I got to pull my head out of the sand to think about that. I've got a lot of personal goals, some that I won't mention yet. But I'm going to be launching the mentorship this weekend. Is going to be kind of like a soft launch for that, but so that's going to be a big thing. Like that's what I did this year, and it's been a life changer for me. So even today, I had like the VFX supervisor I mentioned. He was like, dude, like he keeps seeing like all these people posting their work from being students in the thing, and he's just like, yeah, like everyone keeps commenting about like how fucking cool all that like people's work is, because they see it on Vimeo and stuff, and they're like, holy shit, that's amazing. And then it's like, this is like something that we did in the thing. So that's been really cool, and I want to do that more. I'm going to be meeting up in Paris, speaking at an event there.
Need a gaffer?
Maybe.
Let's do it.
Maybe. I might go to Trojan Was a Unicorn conference.
I've never been. Things about that, and I want to check it out.
Delcio's been trying to get me to go, and like I haven't gone, but like this year I might do it. I want to start traveling a bit more again. Go back to Australia. I don't know. I've got a lot of big goals. I'm just trying to think of them all. I've got a lot going on right now. I've been hiring a lot more people lately, so I've got a lot of things in the works. But as like last night, I sat down at the table and like people were like pushing the drink to me, like, Alan, you're stressing out. Like, for the love of God, have a drink. So yeah, I'm a bit like that at the moment. Which yeah, it's gonna be good though. It's gonna be an epic year. I'm more concerned about what I'm doing tonight than what I'm doing, a week from now.
We're gonna be there's still so much I want to do. Like I don't feel like it's time to sit back and kick my legs up just yet.
Good.
I don't think I'm close or near to that. So I'm ready to keep moving, doing new things. Gosh, I'm excited. And the one thing I would have to say, anybody listening to this, it's a new year. All right, if you didn't do anything this year, do it next year. Don't think about it. Get off your ass. Make sure it gets done. If you want to ask some questions, I'm sure Alan's very receptive to it. My email, Alan probably posts my email.
Yeah.
djohnson10_02@yahoo.com. Feel free to ask me any questions if you want. I'm always back in Michigan giving lectures whenever I can, because there's so much I wish I knew as an artist before I started this. The knowledge that I know now versus when I was a student, I think things would have gone a lot easier. I'm not saying that it wouldn't have been hard, but it would have gone a lot easier knowing, and I want to give that back if I could. So
it's great, man. And I will post links to all your stuff.
My Twitter, I've got my LinkedIn, Darryl Johnson. He'll post a link to that. I'm a huge gamer, like you guys know. I stream on Twitch. Before I came over here, I'm streaming. I'm going to go on Twitch right after this and stream some more Call of Duty. My Twitch name is userpick05, USERPICK05. Add me, chat me up. I've got no problem talking about tech stuff, work stuff, as long as it's not about Overwatch.
Doctor Who.
Yeah, Doctor Who. My wife streams also. She's an amazing sculptor.
She does?
Yeah, she's
cool.
She's more popular than me now. She streams her sculpting every day from 2 to 4.
That's cool.
And she's been really good at it. So
that's cool. That's great. I might have to check it out. Let me know when the next time you're doing a barbecue. I'll come by.
I will, as soon as it gets warmer.
Cool, man. Well, thank you so much.
Oh, thanks for having me, man. I really appreciate it.
Cool, man. Well, Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you. When it hits midnight, make sure you're not around me because I don't want to make out with you.
I think, like Sol Rogers, he's VR guy. I guess it's New Year's in London right now because he just sent me a big, I miss you.
Spoilers, man.
I miss you more than a fat kid misses cake. Okay, so I just want to say thank you for listening. This has been a lot of fun, and I look forward to putting out next episode. I wanted to just mention that if you like these episodes and you want to help out a little bit, it would be really, really awesome for you to leave a review on iTunes. So just simply log into iTunes and leave a simple review, whatever you want to say. That all being said, I will leave it there. Lots of really cool episodes coming up soon, and I've been getting so much great feedback from everyone, both comments being left as well as emails, and it's just been really cool to kind of get some insight into both what you're enjoying and what you want to see more of. And if you have any ideas of this stuff that you're like, man, it'd be so cool if this could be covered or whatever, I'm glad to listen to those things, because I definitely want to make this what benefits you rather than what I think would benefit everyone. All right, so again, thanks for listening, and talk to you soon.